See a few shrubs trimmed over at your place here.
So much to do over there.
You do? You bought yourself a job.
They didn't fire me.
They re-upped you, huh? I think I'm going, I'm trying to think, I'm on, probably got another year before,
Not for a while.
maybe a year and a half.
It's a place that we'd like to build on someday, but
It'll be time to get rid of them.
Well, we've got about a minute, and Renee won't be here, so,
She's not gonna be here.
no. They had their ward's right next to hers, and they had
We're still nibbling on those leftover
a guy die suddenly over there, and he's a real close friend of the family, and the healings tonight. So,
it's true.
ready to go? We're still missing Mike, but go ahead. We'd like to welcome you to our Planning Commission meeting this evening. This is Planning Commission meeting for October 26th, 2021. This meeting is being recorded. We're going to begin our meeting this evening with an opening prayer by Commissioner Thompson and then a pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Showers.
Our dear Heavenly Father, as we come before Thee this beautiful day, we're grateful for our many blessings. We're so especially grateful for the water which we receive. We ask that may continue to fill our reservoirs. We're so grateful for the opportunity we have to serve here this evening on the Planning Commission as members of the community, to live in such a great place. We're so thankful for the blessings that we receive as residents of this city of Lindon. Now, as we go through this meeting, we ask that we may have an open mind and we may be able to work through the issues and make decisions that are in the best interest of the city. And we say these things now in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to begin our meeting this evening with an audible roll call of the commissioners. Sharon Call here. Mike Marchbanks hasn't joined us yet. Jared Showers.
Here.
Rob Callis.
Here.
Stephen Johnson.
Here.
Scott Thompson.
Here.
And Renee Tribe is excused this evening. The next item on our agenda, these are the minutes. These are from October 12th, 2021. And commissioners have had a chance to review the minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? I wasn't at that meeting, so.
They looked good to me.
Look good? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. The next item on our agenda, item number 3, this is a time for public comment. And this is for any items that are not already on the agenda for this evening. Anyone here for? Okay, the next item on our agenda, this is actually items 4, 5, and 6, and the way we'll proceed on this is our applicant is South Haven Development. Our presenting staff is Michael Florence. He will present the conditional use, the site plan, the major subdivision recommendation, approval and recommendation, but we will act on each one of those individually. So, and if Jeff, you're here with South Haven, and you have someone with you?
Yeah, my legal counsel.
Okay, and your name, sir?
Scott Welker.
Okay, and if you want to come up, you're welcome to. Okay. Okay, and we'll let Mike Florence go ahead.
Great, thank you, Commissioners. It's great to be here with you this evening. So we're familiar with the planned residential development zone, the overlay zone. The City Council adopted that new overlay zone for this Lindon Nursery property close to almost a year ago on November 16, 2020. And so over the past year, the applicant has been working on their development plan, and that was submitted a few months back, and we're at this point this evening for these 3 applications. So I'm gonna go through that just so the public's familiar. The applicant is looking at developing the rear portion of the Lindon Nursery site for a 58-unit townhome development. I'm gonna go to the site plan real quick. So this is the overall site plan for the development. I'm going to go through the site requirements first, and then we'll go through the architectural requirements second. So if you look at the site, they've got the 58 units. We'll go through parking first. There's 214 total parking stalls for this 58-unit development. The city ordinance requires 2.5 stalls, so 2 parking stalls and then a half a stall for visitor parking for each unit. So that would equal 116 parking stalls. So to break that down for this development, they are providing 38 2-car garage units, so you'll have two parking spaces in the garage, 2 parking spaces on the driveway, and then 20 1-car garage units. Again, 20 1-car in the garage and 20 on the driveway, and then 22 guest parking spaces. You can see those identified in these areas here. So that equals the 214 parking stalls for the site. They're required to have 29 visitor spots, but the ordinance allows the Planning Commission to count some of the driveway parking towards the overall visitor parking amount. So they're allowed to count 14 driveways for the visitor parking as well. They're only counting 7 of those. So they meet that off-street parking requirement so again, they've got the total of 214 stalls altogether, or 214 spaces altogether. The ordinance requires you have to have a minimum 65% 2-car garages. They meet that with the 38 2-car garages. So traffic circulation. So the 475 North Street, the 400 West, the 350 West, and 370 North, those are all public streets. We put together a public street standard in the ordinance, so these would all be identified as public streets. Then this road would be a private access. I'm going to go back to a different exhibit that shows that a little bit better. So they're identified here in red as an existing easement between the Lindon Nursery property and Dastrup Auto to the south. And then, what the applicant's proposing is that the public street would end at this point right here. It would turn into a private access, meeting the same width requirements as the public street. A private street would end here, and then they would use
Where is that?
the private street ends at this point
I
here.
don't see your pointer.
By the green area there.
Yeah, sorry, let me put it up here. So the public street, or the private street would start here, and it would end here. The area identified in red is the existing easement between the 2 property owners. The green would be a future easement by Mr. Southard, so that you have the full width coming off the road out to State Street over that easement. So he would record a future easement in this location. Any questions on the roads or access?
Well, I'm sure we'll have some additional input.
I'd like to throw that up on, maybe later, on a Google Earth view of that, and kind of see if we can see where that's at.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna go back to the site plan real quick. So the planned residential development ordinance requires a minimum of a 1 acre site. This project is 6.53 acres if you count the two access roads out to State Street. If you count just the area, you know, from 350 west back, it's approximately 6 acres, so they meet that 1 acre requirement. The density is 9.49 units per acre. The commercial requirements, so they've either got to have an existing commercial use on the property as well, or new commercial. So they've got the existing Lindon nursery that will remain, as well as the existing barn where they do receptions at times. So let me go over the setback requirements. So the development's required to have a 25-foot front setback for the townhomes, 16-foot side yard setbacks between townhome buildings, and then 30-foot rear yards. So units 101 through 106, 107 through 118, and then 141 through 158, those all have 30-foot rear yard setbacks. The units 130 or 119 through 130, actually through 140, what they're proposing is a 10-foot rear yard setback, and the ordinance allows the planning commission to reduce that setback if they're providing common open spaces. So some of the spaces are here where there'll be a tot lot, a pickleball court, a basketball court. So they're proposing that trade-off for the smaller rear yards on those interior units.
So that's where the common open space is then?
That's correct.
What's that to the north?
Here?
No, the series of semicircular lines, you're right.
Oh, this would be a detention basin. So you've got one here and two more down here at the other end of the property. This area would be underground detention.
In the area north of the tot lot, that's all grass and
This
landscaped
would-
as well. That's gonna be open, I'm assuming paths or walkways or something through there.
That's correct, probably just a grass area. So the ordinance requires that they have both active and passive areas if they're doing common open space. And so that's what those would act as. So let me go to the fencing really quick. So the applicant has already installed fencing around the perimeter of the property. They've provided this is a 7-foot wall that they've provided between the project and the barn where they do the receptions. And then this is the wall, the 7-foot wall they've put up around the perimeter between the townhomes and the existing single-family homes. The project requires they do an entry type sign. This is a picture of the Walker Farms sign here in Lindon. I believe they want to do something similar to this sign as what they've submitted. As far as solid waste pickup, each unit would have their own garbage can, just like normal single-family residences that they would put out. Okay, any questions so far on the site plan?
Mike, one question I'll have when we get there is, how does this correlate with what was passed by the city council? Right, I remember the ordinance stated that they had to have a site plan at the time of getting so I'd just like to see how it correlates. That's just the question I'm gonna have.
Okay, and I can pull that one up as well. It's very similar.
I can't remember, it's been so long.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
Yeah, remind me, because I'll pull that up. I'll have to just find it real quick.
Thank you.
Let's see, so as far as sidewalks, let me just address that really quick before I move on to the architecture. So they're proposing sidewalks on one side of the street, which is pretty typical of many townhome developments. So if you can kind of see my arrow here, there'll be sidewalk on this side of the street, sidewalk on this side. You'll have sidewalk over here, and then the sidewalk for 350 West jumps on this side of the street and goes out along here. The ordinance also requires that they have access out to State Street, so on 475 North, they're providing access out to State Street from the development.
So Mike, on that, can you, so with 350, with the sidewalk on the east side, right there,
Right here? Oh, on
Yes.
this side, yes.
is that road large enough to have parking on it? Or will that be a no parking zone on the east side of 350?
I believe the roads are wide enough they can have parking on one side, so we'll probably have to look at some type of signage.
I mean, the one side's all driveways, so it makes
Yeah.
sense it would be the other side, but I was just wondering if it was large enough.
Yeah, I believe it would be allowed on one side.
That's part of the reason the sidewalk is over there, and we need to put a fence there as well. And so it made sense to have the fence not butting up against the road, but with a sidewalk to buffer it.
So that'd be another 7-foot fence, right?
Well, that's one of the items he'll talk about.
Yeah, let me get to that. The applicant is proposing a wrought iron fence to be placed on this east side of 350 West. That's something the planning commission will have to give approval for. The ordinance in the commercial general zone, which is the base zone for this property, typically requires a 7-foot masonry wall or precast. It does allow the commission to approve alternative type fencing. So the applicant's asking for a wrought iron fence that would go on the back side of that sidewalk. As far as renderings, the applicant's provided a couple different types of renderings. These are a farm-style townhome. And so I gave you a table, and I don't know if I need to go through every one of those items on that table. As I've went through them, I feel like they comply with the majority of those requirements. Couple items that I want to hit is that, well, let me go through just so the public can see all of these renderings. The contrasting colors, so the buildings are required to have two different colors, and so the main color is the white and the secondary color would be the garage door, that brown garage door, and then the timber entry feature as well. The doors are required to have the windows in the door. So this plan that you've seen with the 3 photos has hardy board on 100% of the front facade. The sides have some stucco. The other renderings you'll now see have rock or brick wainscot on those. The applicants all provided lighting as well that will go on the lighting fixtures to match this style home. So these are both the rock wainscot, and then this one's the brick wainscot as well. One thing I wanted to just talk about was the window treatments. The ordinance requires that they pick they give you a list of 4 items that you can pick from for the window treatments, and you have to pick 2 of those 4. And a couple of the items that I believe the applicant's going for is the 4-inch trim around the windows. It says it's got to be a contrasting color, but I've studied, looked at a lot of these farmhouse style, and they mostly all have the white trim. So, if the commission is open to letting the applicant and the staff work on that color, I think, that white matches that farm style, and that's pretty much the design for those. maybe they could look at a different color of white or so, you know, so it still matches well if the commission would be open to that. The other item they'd probably need to look at is doing either a mullion or a transom in those windows, so that they're more that decorative style. So these are all the six-plex buildings. They're required to provide a second building style. This would be the fourplex building. And that would be on that main entrance on the north is where this building would be located. You can see the light style that they're looking to provide on the different townhome units. And then the applicant has provided kind of to break up, so the different building styles with, you know, having some all hardy board, some brick, some brick wainscot, some rock wainscot, so that they're all not next to each other. They've shown how those different buildings will be laid out so that they vary in that architectural detail.
So Mike, just a question on that, the sixplexes also vary, is that right,
Yes.
in the style?
Yeah,
And
they vary
architecture?
with the wainscot.
Okay.
They also vary with the treatment on so you can see some of them here. In the gable area have a different, you know, the hardy board is a horizontal look in some of the gables, where on other ones it's fully, you know, it's all straight. Let's see if I can get a better view. So that changes as well on some of the units. So the third item of this, with the applicant's application, is to subdivide the units. That's required as part of the subdivision approval process, that's required as part of the site plan approval, is that they're required to subdivide those, and so they've provided a subdivision plat that you will be the recommending body on this to the city council. They will give the final approval on the subdivision. So we've been going through these items with our engineering department. They're finishing up some technical reviews on the storm drainage with the developer. We're also finalizing the renderings to make sure those are compliant with the developer as well. So does the commission have any additional questions about this presentation? Right, well, we can answer some more as we go through. One of the questions.
Question about the HOA documents or something, was there?
They are setting up an HOA. The staff has reviewed those. I did bring one item to your attention in that staff report, just, you know, about the rental rate. There's not a lot we can do about that, but we wanted to bring that to your attention in case you had some questions for the developer.
Okay, do any of you have questions you would like to ask staff or
Yeah, I
the
do.
developer?
Um,
Okay,
From the site plan, could you outline where the block or tilt-up wall is
Yeah.
planned? And then maybe to the developer, what's the purpose of the requesting the wrought iron instead of the block?
Yeah, let me go up and so that more decorative precast fence was put in this location. And I can't remember, Jeff, is it here as well?
Yeah, no, and then it's
No, so-
the other one goes straight back.
So then more the concrete look, 7-foot fence, it goes on this area here, and does it stop here? Stops right there.
Okay.
And that's been installed already. So we didn't have to before, but we told the neighbors we would put that wall up before we started doing all of the major development. Thought it would shield them and us, to be honest, you know, make it a little safer so no one gets in there from the backside. We've met a lot with the plats, so on 350, I think it is, where our front yard and garages of that fourplex and sixplex face the nursery, the plats and I have discussed it and think that the wrought iron fence will look better and will actually be a little safer. When you have a solid wall, people can sneak around on either side of it and you can't tell what's going on. And so the plats like the idea that, you know, if something's going on at night, our residents can see what's happening at the nursery. And it also doesn't make it feel like a compound, kind of right behind another big wall at the front, allows for some views. Right now, it's beautiful with the things they grow there. I know that's not necessarily in 30 years what'll be there. We'll have to deal with that at that time. But those were the main reasons. No one can hop a wall and hide. Where we're abutting residential neighborhoods, I don't think that's gonna be a problem in the backyards. But Michael was, one of the changes that we made on that west property line, there was a sidewalk that kind of meandered behind our townhomes and that wall. And we just felt like that wasn't gonna be safe. People could hide behind the two fences that would have been there, and that could be, I don't know, could open opportunities for mischief. And so those 30-foot deep backyards will be fully fenced yards abutting up to the neighbors who are backyards, so we feel good about that setup as well.
The fencing is really part of the ordinance to protect the residents who live in the homes. And so my question is, the future residents of those people that live on 360, I wonder if they would choose a wrought iron fence.
Well,
Or
they get to choose whether they want to live there or not, because we'll put that fence in and they'll know what's going in before they would be there.
so let's say the plats sell to a car dealership there. You think they want to face onto a car dealership?
We'll make sure it's fully disclosed that it is a wrought iron fence and that use could change in the future.
So you're asking for an exception to the code, though?
Absolutely.
Right.
I think it will look better and be more appropriate, so you can't hide behind that fence.
What would happen in that situation? Let's say hypothetically speaking, another business did come in and want to use that property. Then could we not at that time say, you have to erect a wall, business abutting commercial, residential?
It would depend if it's a change of use. So if it went from a
Nursery to-
agricultural store, nursery to, a car dealership, we may
Then
be
we
able
might
to,
be able
or
to
if
say,
it.
they have to put a wall in at that point.
Okay.
I mean, it's really though that's meant for, more if they are, it usually comes to play more with site plan approvals. So some of these change of uses you may not see and would have to review that. So it's not a guarantee that they'd have to put a wall in.
Because it may never even come before a planning commission.
Yeah.
If the use came as a conditional use permit, we'd have an opportunity to look at that and maybe impose that type of a condition. But if it doesn't require that, then that's the fence that would probably stay there.
Like it's mainly if they're going to have outdoor storage is what the ordinance says. If they're going to have outdoor storage, then staff could require the wall.
We just feel strongly that it's more aesthetically pleasing if it's open, similar to what we did down at Avalon next to the residences there. If you've seen that wall, and Michael could even pull it up if you wanted, but I think that's been a good transition.
Anything else, any other questions from the commission? And I do know that there's a lot of residents here from that area. And even though this isn't a public hearing, we do welcome input from you. And I know you've got your attorney here. I don't know if there's things you would like to address at this time with us. And then I know there's other the Dastrups, and they're represented over here also.
We'd probably prefer to speak last based on what input might come before the council.
Okay.
I'm happy to explain that over the last, gosh, it's almost been a year, I think, Michael, since when did we receive the initial concept approval from the city council?
In July
November.
2020.
November of 2020?
okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
the
almost a
ordinance was
year.
approved then, yeah.
We've worked on, there've been 3 issues probably that have been important, that have affected the timeline. This has taken a long time. One is the sewer and the storm drainage and things like that. We were able to acquire an easement with a neighbor in the back and work through things with him and make sure that all of the storm drain, and we had to work closely with the city engineers to get everything to flow properly and work for the subdivision. That took quite a bit of effort. I had some personal issues this summer that also delayed us health-wise, but then the other one is that road between the property that I now own and Dastrup Auto. And so I met with him, I don't know if it was a year ago, but sometime in the last while, and after, was it in the spring? After he told me to F off and good luck with everything, then I haven't really communicated with him directly. So that's why my attorney's here. Our attorney has worked with his attorney to try to figure out kind of what the best solution would be. But I know Brian, we've worked closely with him as well. This private access is absolutely allowed and stamped approval by our city attorney. And so we're here to answer any of those questions after we hear what others have to say.
Okay.
Yeah, with regards to that, looking here, so there has been a lot raised regarding the easement, but the easement, from what we're seeing here, is not near or in front of the building. The private access is.
That's
And
correct.
there's nothing to prevent, legally, to prevent that private access from going right there along the building?
I think Brian could speak to that.
Yeah, there are safety issues that have been raised and that are, we rely on our engineers for those, and we believe that those can be mitigated. But you're right, that is on private property. It's not where the access or the easement is involved, and so, yeah, it can go there.
And we made sure with our engineer and the city engineers, I double-checked this today, but the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, that private access and that road meet all of those requirements. There are no concerns safety-wise with the city engineers about where that road is or that curve. Now, I know Dastrup has raised some concerns with that, and to be good neighbors, we are willing to go above and beyond what is required with those national guidelines, if you will, and put some bollards or other things in. We've presented that offer through my attorney to his. So we're willing to do even more than is required by our city engineers just to try to mitigate any of those concerns that we really think are a red herring, but, trying to be good neighbors.
Have you considered K-rail along that entire building?
Yeah, so what...
Something that if a vehicle does lose control, it's gonna push them back on the property and not
Yeah,
into-
what we described, can I approach that screen because it might be easier to show? I can just talk loud if you want. But our idea, because it would be a private access road, there may be once a year or every few years where you actually have to close it off for a day on Christmas or whatever, as you see at some public places. We've talked about putting bollards here and then a split rail metal fence, if you will, that would be opened and then chained to this bollard so that it would create a type of guardrail, if that makes sense. And then we would have that option if we needed to once a year to close it for a day, but have a type of rail in case somebody did jump. We'd be able to have it as function as a guardrail 364 days a year. And so as we kind of talked with the engineers and stuff, we thought that might be the easiest way to do it.
and I don't know if this is the time to bring that up. In this staff report, it indicates that about 70% of the development can be rented.
Can eventually end up as rentals, yes. Yeah, that's what the HOA says, those documents.
Yeah, that, I mean, I see a lot of things that look very, very nice about the development. That concerns me as well as the city staff.
Yeah.
You know, I pulled the notes from the meeting July of 2020, and all through that, and you remember that meeting, you had a lot of people here to support, you know, the ordinance being approved. And all through it talks about that, you know, you just really wanted these to be for first-time home buyers, affordable housing. Another person, he would encourage the city council to allow first-time home buyers.
If you look at all those notes, we were asking for some things that didn't get approved that would have dramatically helped make these more affordable. So instead of 10 units to the acre, if you remember, we were really pushing hard for 12. And to have that amount of land at 12 units to the acre, instead of 58, we'd have 70 to 72 homes that would be in there. The only way to make that happen is those homes have to be smaller, right? To fit more homes in the same amount of acreage, you have to have more of them, or you have to have smaller so that you can fit more. At 400 square feet less.
More affordable to the purchasers? Or
Yeah, more
the
affordable to both, because smaller square footage, I'm probably $50,000 to $80,000 less if it's 400 square feet less. These homes would have been in the $300,000 range. And so the per square foot would stay roughly the same, but you'd be buying and the cost would be less square footage, right? So we were really pushing hard for the architectural design requirements to be less than they are, but everything that was presented was put in. And at 10 units to the acre, now I have to build them bigger, and they are more expensive. And so unfortunately, these could have been in the mid-300s, and now they're easily into the 400s. And that's based on the decisions that the Planning Commission and City Council made. So we would have loved to have them be more affordable and first-time oriented, but these are $400,000+ townhomes now.
But the impression that, I mean, and I know that there's really not much we can do about that because we did
really
not put
yeah.
it in the ordinance, which I think that will happen.
Yeah.
If anything like
But you're
this is ever
correct,
done again.
it's really
and-
not something that you can do now. And if we had had these be more affordable like we had asked for, I think that wouldn't even be part of the discussion. But we have an interest list right now. It's not 70% investors, but we know over time, people will buy them and they'll move in 5 years, and they may or may not sell them, and they may choose to keep them and rent them. And so that's why we've pegged it at the 70, so we don't have to go back and change it later.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just kind of, I guess, disappointed
Yeah.
that I feel like we were given the impression that that's one of the reasons this type of housing was going in, and we approved that was so that there would be opportunity for
Well,
first-time
I
home
think you were
buyers.
given the impression that we would really love 12 units to the acre and less architectural design guidelines so they can be affordable. And since those two things didn't happen here at the commission or at the council, then the third thing was a function of those. So it's kind of hard to say that the planning commission and city council don't have any responsibility for how that ended up, because that's how it ended up.
I think we would have probably put something in the ordinance that would have prevented that had we known you were going to go this direction.
Yeah, well, I was hoping that it was going to be different, but it wasn't.
I might just say that I think we have the desire not to see these not become rentals. The argument you're making if we would have given you what you were making, would have made it more likely that they would become rentals.
Well,
Not less likely.
if they appeal, and I don't know, because I've had some people who've thought about them as an investment say, at $450, it doesn't pencil. At $350, you're probably right, it may have. So I think at the price point they're gonna be, we're not gonna have a lot of them that are. But 10 years from now, I don't know what will happen in the market. And the HOA, without your permission, could easily change that. I mean, I could put it at 20% today, but in 5 years, the HOA could vote, no, we're gonna go to 100%. And the city would have no say in that. So I'm just kind of setting it up, being transparent like I've always tried to be.
Well, yeah, I guess the transparency thing was the trust that we had placed. And what's happening is that's being put back on us, that it's our fault.
Do you feel like you have
And I
no
don't-
responsibility for how they ended up?
I guess my thoughts are we had assumed this was going to be, and this has been a learning curve for us too, but we had assumed that this was going to be an opportunity for people to purchase first-time homes. And you know, looking back through the notes, that's, I mean, over and over, that impression was given. And of course, now we know that the language has to be put in that would protect that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's, what you're proposing is very nice. It's very nice, but we had hoped that this would be an opportunity for people.
Me too. I would have loved to see them be in a first-time buyer price range, but they're really not.
Yeah, okay. I think what we'll do is, like I said, this isn't a public hearing, but we will give public an opportunity. If you'll just state your name and stand and give your comments. We would appreciate you addressing those directly to the commission rather than, you know, towards each other. I know we have some other legal counsel here, and, you know, we'd certainly welcome your opinion. I'm sure it's regarding the easement. But maybe we could hear for some of the residents here as far as their concerns with the development itself. Okay. Is there anyone here, Angie, if you'd like to go ahead?
Jeff, if you want to let them.
Should we go sit down? Yeah, we're
If you'd like to, yeah.
Angie Newworth, 607 West, 425 North. Okay, I regret that I didn't look at this till this morning, so I wasn't able to write a letter. But one of the major concerns that I have is that it appears that this parcel was broken off in a meets and bounds description instead of a subdivision plat, vacating the Lindon, the previous Lindon Nursery Plat A. And then it's like 4 parcels, and now it will be, it's affecting 4 different parcels, including 5 with dash strips. But it's going to create several non-conforming parcels that don't necessarily have frontage. You have the little triangle on the south side. You have the parcel up with the barn, and you have an irregular shaped parcel surrounding the nursery itself, and then you have the other little parcel. And I don't even know that plat matches with the meets and bounds that is now recorded at the county. So I'm just wondering why this, I understand that we did a concept plan, but then all of a sudden there was a lot split, and I don't even believe that that would be considered legal in how they've just did that split without doing all the other steps. With that concern, I'm really concerned about how the businesses are going to be conforming to the city standards once you create the separation with a legal road going through the middle of it, where their parking would be, where, I think that all needs to be looked at the same time, because I think you're creating a big mess in regards to the existing businesses and future businesses when they come. Let's see. The other issue is that, well, when he was mentioning the fence, I was wondering on that north side, between where the barn is and the townhomes, they say a wrought iron, but I believe right now that is where they're storing all their dirt. And it would seem like if there's any kind of wind, it might be better to have a solid wall that might block some of that dirt from going over into the residential areas.
It's already a solid wall where the barn is. We're not proposing it where the barn is.
So between, how can I explain that? Oh, you don't have a pointer.
They're proposing
So the west
wrought
side,
iron
But what about, I think from what she said though, what about the
over here.
north side of 475?
no, the
Is
west,
that,
right down, if you go straight down from
a solid
there.
7-foot wall.
Okay, that is solid,
Yeah.
okay.
but going out to the street, isn't that wrought iron from there?
No.
This is
This is
wall.
solid too?
This is solid.
Okay.
The barn is solid.
For some reason, I was thinking you were saying you were gonna do
Yeah,
wrought
I
iron over
misunderstood.
there.
No, just
The-
on that,
The wrought iron would be
Just right
proposed
there.
here.
right.
Just right around the nursery building itself. Okay, got it. The other issue is the parking. The tandem parking is very difficult for people to get used to, and I see residents using the visitor parking, and I know that that's really difficult for them to control. I went ahead and I called Orem City this morning because when I drive down Geneva Road, there's a new development called Lakeview Fields, and they have just tons of overflow parking lining Geneva Road down about almost to 2000 South. And I asked them about their parking issues there, and he said, well, we're hoping that once it gets developed out that there won't be the same issues, but it seems kind of strange that they have more units, that they wouldn't have more parking issues. But he said that with single-family homes, the problem is a single family is considered the same as 3 singles. And once you have 3 singles and 3 cars, you have that spilling over into those, into the other areas. And I am really concerned about that spilling over into the businesses and the headache that the businesses are gonna have, and vice versa, if businesses don't have enough parking, spilling over into this little residential neighborhood, and what a headache that's gonna be for the police department to have to enforce all of that. And I know it's a big headache. In fact, Orem was saying they have a moratorium and they're looking at going away from higher density. And so I'm just concerned that now that we're just starting a higher density on State Street, that we don't want it to be a big nightmare with this one project. And let's see. Oh, the CCNRs. Are there CCNRs with this project? I was just thinking maybe if the ownership issue, it makes me nervous for them to be able to change that in the homeowners association. But if it's in the CCNRs, I don't know if the ownership percentage can be in the CCNRs that are recorded instead of just the HOA documents. Of course, we are concerned with the traffic inflow and outflow, but I think we'll live and learn with this project and the projects across the street and how it all flows. So I think that's everything.
One thing I might say on the parking, Angie, is that they are complying with
Yeah.
the way the ordinance is written.
And I understand that after reading it. I know that cities do allow the tandem parking to be counted. I wondered about the precedence of allowing the visitor parking to be part of the tandem parking, allowing that to be part of the count.
And I
And I
defer to
understand
city
that's
staff
already
on
in the
that, yeah,
ordinance.
Yeah,
But I don't think I realized that at the time when we drafted
yeah,
this.
some of these things, we just have to measure, does it comply with the ordinance or
I
not?
know, and in hindsight,
Yeah,
I didn't realize that was in there. So,
Yeah,
anyway.
you've exceeded the parking by quite a few. I mean,
So, with that,
Yeah.
can I ask a question? Will there be any pedestrian access through that fence, wrought iron or otherwise, to the parking? So if someone was to park in the businesses, they'd have to basically go out to State Street and walk around to get, right?
No.
For our neighborhood?
I'm just saying, right, if there's a fence all the way around,
the fence is only right here.
Can I approach again?
oh, so, okay.
So theoretically, someone could park in the parking lot and
And then
walk
just
the
come around.
sidewalk.
To go around, but there will
It
be.
doesn't go all the way
fence
out,
blocking
okay.
them here.
But I'm sure I'll get a call from Ed or Heather immediately if that happens.
Okay.
I do see that in Macy's
Unless they buy
parking
a
lot already.
pot of flowers every time they park there and then.
Are there other comments from citizens? Anyone else want to make input?
Yeah,
Go
I'd like
ahead.
to share.
Okay, and your name?
Devin Dasher with Dasher Farm. To start with, I think there's been a misrepresentation of a conversation between Jeff and myself. What he indicated was not accurate. The conversation that we had was that he presented to me this layout of the road, and he essentially presented an alternative plan, which was to, and I have copies of all the emails, all the attachments that he provided. These are drawings that they provided, not drawings that I had done. But what he had done is said, okay, well, if you don't put the road right here, and at the time, it was believed that the city was gonna require that all the streets be a public road. And so he essentially said, if you don't deed over your corner pieces right there of your parcel for the road, then we're gonna do this. At the time, the Lindon Nursery, and I kind of go into this because it has what I believe is a lot of manipulation attached to it. And so that, in the nature of it, got me frustrated, and that's why I used foul language, okay? But it wasn't in the context that he shared. So the nursery had already moved all their bulk bins to the north end. I have years of text between me, Heather, and Ed requesting that they turn on their sprinklers. We used to spend upwards of $1,000 a month washing our cars. I can provide invoices, I can show all of that for years. We had requested many times for that water to be turned on to maintain the dust and stuff within the wind. And oftentimes it was. So they had moved the bulk bins, and I'm super grateful for that. I can't express my gratitude more to them for that. But in our conversation, mine and Jeff's conversation, he said, well, if you don't do this and deed over a portion of your property, we're gonna do this. And he showed me this diagram. And I apologize, it's not in color, but basically he outlined where the easement is. The road arched further north and avoided the easement altogether and butted into State Street. And he said, we're gonna put, bulk bins back in this location, and we're gonna expand the easement so that you still have access. And it was a little bit of a slap in the face, really. It was kind of a, you deed this portion of your property, or we're gonna do it without you and put bulk bins back over here. Literally, it's written right on this piece of paper, and I'll give you copies of it. And so, what I said is, it is effing ridiculous that I went and supported the development, and this is what I got in return. That is the true
Okay,
context of that conversation.
okay.
I've got all the emails. He later presented, again, the same maps. He didn't leave a copy with me at the time, but he left, or he emailed me maps later on and just said, hey, look, we're gonna do this without you, with or without you. We don't need your approval to do it. And it's just a bulldoze kind of thing. You know, and that, we believe, violates our property rights.
Okay,
So, plain and simple.
okay, and is you,
Yeah, so let me just say,
If
so
you
my
could
name's
give your-
George, George Chingus, I represent
Okay.
Descartes Auto,
Okay.
with regard to this issue. I sent earlier, I emailed a copy of a letter to the
Right.
planning department, maybe you had a chance to read that, just outlined.
we also received that.
Okay, and so just to review, some of the concerns obviously have been mentioned already with regard to the location of the access road, particularly as it relates to the repair shop on Dastrup Auto. The planning report, the staff report actually says that it comes within 9 to 10 feet from that building. There is a gas meter, there is an electrical transformer, so there's safety concerns. We did receive a proposal today, or I did, from South Haven's attorney, with a proposal regarding the bollards and then the fence that the developer had just described. And we appreciate that. There are other safety concerns, however, as I outlined in the letter that I presented to the Planning Commission, specifically further east, which actually would be located on the easement between Dastrup Auto and the nursery lot, is that there are display vehicles that would be within approximately, we think, about 6 feet of that road. There's customers that come on the lot, they walk around the display vehicles, and so that is a safety concern as well, with regard to that. Obviously, there's a legal dispute between the two parties as to the easement that doesn't necessarily involve the city. That we believe that that easement, they do need permission, to use that for access. Their position thus far, and this is the legal issue that we're discussing, is that they don't need permission. I note in the staff report that it was recommended, this is under major subdivision motion, this is item 4 under that in the staff report. And it says, if applicant and Dastrup Auto are not able to agree on dedicating the south entrance as a public street, then an additional easement will be recorded prior to plat recording that creates a required access width. So we are currently negotiating with them. Like I said, I received a proposal today. We're discussing that. We will get back to them on that. But I did have a question, and I don't know if this goes to the staff or not. I guess, what is the intention or what is the thinking of the staff if the parties are unable to come to an agreement for the use of the easement as access from State Street? I just didn't understand necessarily what that
condition.
language meant.
So that condition was, so the area in the red is the existing easement up here.
Right.
And so staff is requesting that this additional easement in green be recorded so that it creates that same width as the private access to be able, for residents to be able to go out to State Street.
Okay, but that looks to me like that would be required whether or not these two parties come to an agreement on the easement.
The language in the report is talking about dedication of the property to the city as a public roadway.
Okay.
The city is recognizing at this point that is an ingress, a valid ingress, egress
Right.
easement. And of course, if there's, you're unable to reach a resolution and there's litigation, we'll obviously defer to whatever a court decides.
Right.
But at this point, we see that as a valid easement. And so it would need to be expanded to be the full width. And so that, the green part is an additional easement to make the full easement meet the road width that would be required for a private road, not a public road.
It would meet the public road.
Width, but we're talking, I think there was discussions originally about dedicating it, making it a public road, dedicating it to the city so the city would maintain it. But this application has changed that a little bit to where that section would be private and would not be a public. So if they're able to come to an agreement to where they can dedicate it to the city, then we wouldn't be looking at any easements, we would just take a dedication.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the clarification. And there were proposals, and as Devin had showed, and I don't know if you can see those, with the road going further north. Obviously, that is our preference. We appreciate the bollards and the fence. There are concerns in the easement, like I said, safety concerns. That building, the repair shop, the road is north of that, so it's gonna be in the shade. There's gonna be ice and snow issues. Clearly, our preference for safety issues is that the road simply be moved, and our suggestion would be about 50 feet to the north of its current location, which would resolve all those issues.
And that would be over onto the Lindon Nursery property, is that right?
Right, and they're,
Well, so the parcel that the private road is on, shown here, is owned by the investment group.
Right. The
that is
private access.
doing the, development. We were told, we had a phone conversation, we were told that what their plan was is to take this parcel, and basically get an approval where the road's going, essentially as a private road, and then subdivide the rest off and sell it back to the nursery for their purposes. And so, right now, they own the whole piece. Our proposal would be to say, okay, just move the road north, you don't have to put any protection stuff for either the display vehicles or our shop and, any of that stuff, by putting a piece of real estate between there. And shoot, through negotiations, it could possibly be that the nursery get that piece back and that it's a public road. It would be better maintained, it would be better serviced on snowy days, that kind of thing. It wouldn't be in the shade naturally. Obviously, unless somebody built a big building right next to it, and that's, for future development. But, allowing a private road, and such a short piece, really, to be placed in the shade, only 9 feet from our existing building. I mean, all the others are 25 feet from the road. If the city can say, okay, well, you can't build a home, you have to build a home, this X amount of feet away from the road, why can't they say, hey, let's have that same amount of space between an existing building and a new road? I don't see the, I guess I don't see the common sense and neighborly aspect with this,
Okay,
so.
okay.
So how much further north are you thinking that road
You said
could
about
be built?
50 feet. so-
Well,
So-
I would propose that it be 50 feet north, and, I mean, we've tried to negotiate a little bit there, historically, and if they can't give up that much land to sell us, which was in early talks, then retain some of that land on the south side. Let's resituate, clean up property lines, and let's find a way to come together on this thing. Don't just bulldoze right through it. There's no reason to do that. There's every reason to come together and say, okay, let's make this right and make this, and make this so it's all part of one thing, not just having a little teeny piece of private road that,
if you move that road 50 feet north, though, that kind of makes a lot of land for Lindon Nursery unusable, doesn't it?
Well, there's, what's the nursery, down on 1600 North? Cook's Farm. They've got pieces of property all over the county.
Yeah.
You know, there's no reason that they couldn't have operations on that side of the road.
Just trying to
You know, driving a tractor across might be, and maybe that's a legal issue, but you could certainly put it on a trailer and drag it across. So,
Can you help us, maybe I'm the only one, but help us with the genesis of the easement? How did that come about? What was the thought
so
process?
as you can see, this easement came about in 2016. Mr. Platt and I sat down at the nursery, and we had drawn up, we had our civil engineer Dudley's draw up some different concepts and ideas about it, and he had drawn up to try and divide some of that zigzag property line fairly evenly. Ed pushed back a little bit on how far north our rock trench was. There's a landscape rock trench that serves as drainage right there for us as well. And the idea is to do an easement so that it cleans up the property lines, but also so that both businesses could have access across there like it had traditionally been used in the past. Our property has a long history. There used to be a home on the top, or on the north corner there. There was a whole bunch, I think it was the first grocery store in Lindon. There's a whole bunch of warehouse behind it. It was a heavy industrial use for some period of time, ended up burning down. So we came in and took all of that out and repurposed it and cleaned it up.
Yeah.
You know, some people in our meeting used the phrase lipstick on a pig when referring to car dealerships, but this is a lot better than what it was.
Right.
Plus, we're a huge tax producer, so I hope the city sees that as well. So the idea with cleaning up this just bizarre property line there, the easiest way to do it was an easement.
What did you get out of the easement? Used to get to your?
It made it more functional as a parking lot and display lot. We have an access back behind our display lot and east of our shop there. For a long time, we blocked it off. The nursery had bulk bins back there, and oftentimes their customers they'd fill up right there on the easement, and they would pull through and exit on our property, and most customers struggled with cleaning bed rails off and bumpers off, so we'd end up with a trail of debris on our property. So we blocked that off for a period of time. We use it. We still use it. You know, the idea was to make it more functional for both parties in that. Not
big
only.
use is for semis when they come back to the back to drop off a motor or whatever, and they're able, it's a much easier exit.
What's your name, sir?
My name's Tyler. Devin
Okay.
and I are business partners.
Okay, right, okay.
So they'll come in at our main entry off of State Street, right past our office, and then they'll circle around and exit on that one.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So, but that's the premise. That was the premise of why the easement was written to begin with, is it made both properties more functional.
Well, and I've driven down there and looked to have a better picture of exactly what we're talking about. So you do not feel like any kind of fencing or bollards or anything like that would
We would
take care
love
of
to
it?
clean it up, make sure that road gets to be a public road that's publicly maintained and serviced and stuff, and we'd like to have more space between the shop.
Right, I understand.
As, I don't know if you can see, but I don't know if we have a lot of support here today almost this whole half of the room is either family members or employees, and most of which are in the shop, some of which are showing vehicles in sales. And they're along that rock trench every day, all day long. And so, if it came down to just a safety thing, it would need to be along the entire shop. It would need to be along the entire rock trench. I mean, there's a lot of safety problems putting it that close.
Staff,
Go ahead.
a question. If it were to be developed as it's shown on here, as a private access, who maintains it?
So the HOA would be required to maintain the private access portion.
So,
And then
but
the-
the HOA doesn't have an easement, it's Lindon Nursery that has the.
Yeah, they would have to stop, they would stop at that border here, I guess.
And then who maintains it from there to the State Street?
That'd be between this property owner and Dastrup to maintain that.
So I think we control and own that right now because I own that entire parcel. And
Which
the
parcel
attorney
is
can
that?
probably chime in on that, but if we improve it, we would be the ones responsible to maintain it.
Exactly.
And that easement runs with the land,
Right.
so it's not Lindon Nursery, it was Lindon Nursery when they owned the land. Now I am responsible for that easement, correct?
Right. And Mr. Dastrup would certainly have a legal right to look to maintaining that easement if that use was there. You know, if the other party was taking some type of action that degraded the use of that easement, there would certainly be something, a legal right to look to remedy that.
So we own that entire parcel right now, including the easement.
But where is the property line that, does
And
it?
it's jig-jagged, see how that little sawtooth? Can I point at it again, Michael, is that okay?
I think that's another reason that we wanna have clean property separation so that, there is no liability transfer to us
So you can
for
see,
the development. I mean,
there's a private road that exists there and has for quite some time. We're
Right.
basically mimicking the private dirt road that has been in existence for, I don't know, Ed, how long?
Since 2016 roughly.
Okay, so for the last 5 years, that private road has existed.
that's when we
We
made
are-
the easement.
Right, we are proposing to come in and now make it better by improving it. But I own all of this right now. And when we deed back to Ed, we won't deed him the portion that the easement is on. That will end up with the HOA, so the HOA will be the legal owner and responsible party for that easement. And I think that was your concern, is who would be responsible.
Yeah.
So
Now-
we're not gonna saddle that with Ed, he will be north of that easement and private road.
Where you own that, I mean, as I understand it, you own that right now. I'm just wondering, other than it is valuable property, what your objection would be, other than it is property, in moving that road to the north.
Because Ed Platt's gonna take back all of the property north of the road. That's part of our agreement with him. And we met with Devin at the engineers ages ago and talked about that. Ed said, that doesn't work. For me to keep my business running, I need that private road to basically stay where it is. Devin asked for 50 or 55 feet when we looked at different requirements, and Ed said, no, that doesn't work. So we're trying to respect and maintain the integrity of the nursery business while really doing our best to mitigate any concerns that Dastrup has. But that private road's been there for the last 6 years.
So why was the property sold to you in the first place?
Because it's part of what I need to get everything finished.
So if he sells that property back to the Lindon Nursery, is everybody still meeting the minimum requirements as far as parcel sizes?
No, as Ms. Neuwirth pointed out, looks like I just noticed this today, was lines have been moved. There is a subdivision plat in place, and so that should have come to you. So that's something the owners are going to need to fix over there is that subdivision. You know, this new parcel that was created doesn't have the 100 feet of frontage. And so there is some corrections that need to be made over there, but that's not difficult to do.
And if I may, back to your question, Ms. Call, the concern is that the road basically borders a business right now, and there's a safety issue there. Well, that doesn't resolve the concern by moving it 50 feet, because then it's either bordering Dastrabato or it's bordering Lindon Nursery. And really sadly, Lindon Nursery's been saddled on both sides. So if there's a safety concern with the Dastrabato, we don't have that same safety concern with Lindon Nursery by moving it 50 feet, who now is on both sides of the road. And so if we're trying to address the safety concern, it doesn't really get us there.
It just seems like something could be worked out so both businesses could function in a reasonable manner.
I think that it does better than what it does now, because right now, I mean, it comes straight at our building and turns both directions. If you move it north 50 feet or so, then it has very small arches in the curves. And when we met at their civil engineers, Ed offered me 45 feet, offered for me to buy 45 feet. So that does work with their business application. And what I'm saying is move the road north 50 feet or 60, it doesn't matter, somewhere. I was saying 50 feet because then that gives a viable parcel on the south that they could retain the majority of. The nursery could buy that back and still have business operations over there. They're not losing that land. It divides it up a little bit, but like I mentioned, Cook's Nursery has I think they have some in Lindon here, growing areas and stuff. And so it mitigates an issue, a safety problem, but then the nursery retains plenty of land, if not more, to use. And maybe if the whole purpose of this development is because their business model is changing. And if you look back through the minutes, that's something that Ed has mentioned. They need to adapt with the current markets and stuff, and maybe that changes in the future as well. And at that time, we can negotiate with them and buy the piece that's south of them, or south of the road, if that were a design. It just lends itself better to different options and stuff, to make things work better and safer all the way around. Less curves, it's city maintained, it's not in the shade, there's no reason to go and put a bunch of bollards and crash gates or whatever, and that kind of stuff.
It does seem to me, when I said a raised concrete K-rail, a raised concrete K-rail is what we use down the center of freeways, everything. Would we not resolve all the safety concerns if along the whole south area there, along the entire barn, your facility, if there was a raised concrete K-rail? Those are specifically designed for vehicles hitting them. They come up and it forces them back down away from your building. So rather than bollards, if we had a raised concrete K-rail, that would eliminate your safety concerns. Is that what's most important here?
Well, and I think we all want to have an aesthetically appealing piece of property. Having a K-rail that's up and down the freeway and the canyons and stuff is just not that aesthetically appealing.
But yet it wouldn't be visible behind your garage to you, correct?
Sure, but how do others visualize us?
Okay, any other comments
Sure.
from commissioners?
God, I just maybe remind people, typically we have, these are 3 minutes that
Right,
we give people,
right.
so
Yeah,
we have quite a
that-
few people here tonight that may
right,
want to
that would
comment as
like to
well.
make comments, so, let us consider those things, if there's anything else that you.
I'd like to confirm with the liability with what staff was referencing on the liability. If something happens on my piece of property, where, like this easement is, somebody's walking, trips or whatever, gets hurt or whatever, who's liable for that?
You know, there's a lot of hypotheticals there. I'm not in a position that I can tell you an answer on that. You've got great counsel there, and so does Mr. Southard. I'll let them opine on that.
So that's one of the reasons I think that a separation of properties is a good
Okay.
idea.
Okay. We appreciate your input. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there other commissioners that have questions, and then we'll see if there's other public that does
I
also.
had a question for staff or our attorney. Does the city have a preference on a public versus a private road in this situation? I mean, just if, and then maybe you're not at liberty to say if there's a preference, but, you know, for maintenance and all that, is there would there be a push for one or the other?
From a legal perspective, there's not. I'll defer to Mike from a planning perspective.
Yeah, I mean, just from a planning perspective, public roads are typically better just because, you know, then you're not putting that burden on the HOA to maintain, you know, a public street.
Yeah,
And making sure they have enough in reserve all the time to, you know, maintain the asphalt, the curb and gutter in 20 years.
I was just wondering, it's snowing, right? So do literally the city plows stop at that, you know, I mean, it seems quite cumbersome, I guess, you know what I'm saying? Something that small. So that was just my question, if there was a preference, or, you know, if they could make it a public road. It seems like it would resolve a lot of complexity maybe in the future with maintenance and all those things that, you know, the plow would just run through the whole development and it would be done versus, you know, and I know that probably to maintain it private, understand the law, but right, they have to close it off every once in a while to maintain that it's not just open to the public and all those types of things. So that was more my question. Would there be a drive to try to make it more of a public road? And if it's a public road, what are the requirements? So if it's a public road, are there setback requirements? Or could this, what we see here, be a public road? I guess that's a question.
Yeah. So your commercial general zoning ordinance, so it says, unless otherwise approved by the planning commission, a landscape berm of at least 3 feet high and 20 feet wide shall be planted with grass and maintained in a living, growing condition along all public street frontages.
So there would be need for ordinance would want 20 feet on the side of the road, right? A berm or something.
Yeah, and I think the other thing though, that this is the back of the storage, the repair building, so it's not really a frontage. I mean, you do have a public street, but you're also dealing with the back
Right,
of
but I
a
guess
building as well.
if they were building, and I don't know if it's the same, but if we were building a commercial building, right, we would have setbacks on a side setback and a front setback, and would have all of those setbacks from a public road. And would that be 20 feet on?
20 feet from
Okay.
the front.
And what about a side for a
Side
road?
and rear.
Well, really, the rear is what you'd be looking at.
Yeah, what,
The rear, we don't have
You don't
rear
have
yard
one.
setbacks.
even for
Even against a road?
even against a road? I guess that's
We
what I'm
don't
saying.
call that out. We call it setbacks from a property line, is the way our ordinance is written.
Okay.
And that is how far?
Side and rear are 0.
Zero.
In the commercial zone.
It meets
What-
we checked this, it meets the public road standards with the city engineer and everybody else.
And so let me take that back real quick. It's 40 feet. You have a setback, I believe it's 40 feet if you're within 40 feet of a residential
Right,
property.
right.
But, okay, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around if, you know, if someone was building a property and they wanted to put their building right on the road, the back of their building right on the road, that would be allowed? That doesn't seem,
Well, your new buildings have to front a road, and then you'd have your 20-foot setback. So you're dealing with an issue, you know, with redevelopment, you know, these are harder issues to deal with, yeah.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. It seems like there'd be logically, that there would be some
I'm doing the
setback.
same thing you're doing. So if somebody wanted to build an accessory garage, could they build it on the property line, or would they have to set it back?
Typically you set those back 5 to 7.5 feet. Depending if there's, let me finish. We don't need the comments thanking commissioners, and don't, let staff and the commission discuss this. So, yeah, a typical setback from a property line for an accessory building's 5 to 7.5 feet.
And what is it on this property? It was, do we call 9 or something?
It's not, yeah, I measured 9,
Approximately 9 feet.
approximately 9.
From the property line or from the road?
From the property line. So I measured from, this property line, I measured from the curb, this dark line, to the building.
And I guess with this kind of, I'm just rattling around in my brain, sorry, but, so I'm assuming this building is built right to the property line.
No, it doesn't look like that. And
I mean, how much setback between the building and the property line is there currently?
So you can see that here, here's the county parcel map. So it's currently
There's 8 or 10 feet there, Steve.
Yeah.
9 feet.
So there is some setback there already,
It's about 6.
6. And
Let's go ahead and,
with this proposal, is this road going right up to the property line? Or is there some additional
you'd have the
setback there?
back of the curb would be on the property line, I believe. So you're really, I mean,
It's really not set back.
yeah, I mean, so here's where your curb is, so you may gain another foot or two, it looks like, maybe?
There's no sidewalk there, right, if I remember?
No,
right?
the
So it'd
sidewalk's
be-
on the other
It'd be
side.
on the other side.
so from the property line, how close is that to that road?
On the county map here, we measured, just measured 9 feet.
9 from the.
Mr.
from the
Dastrup
actual
says it's probably
property
more
line.
6.
6,
I don't know, I
but-
wasn't out.
Okay,
Well, no, she asked how far from the property
that's,
line.
that's not,
I just measured was,
But not to his building, but to the road, and there's really none.
correct, it looks like maybe there's 6 inches or a
6
foot
inches,
right
okay.
there,
To the actual property line.
from the property line to the curb.
any thought of putting a sidewalk on that would then, I'm just trying to think outside the box here, a little bit of
Well, and that
different
would
ways.
require them to move that.
Well, the whole road would
easement,
shift, what, the width of a sidewalk,
though. Right.
that would give
Right,
at least a sidewalk.
at
That
least a little bit
vehicle would
of
have to
buffer.
jump the sidewalk before it
Yeah.
hit the bollard or whatever.
Right,
I'm just trying to get my head around.
I think if you put the sidewalk here, you'd
It-
have to extend it out.
Yeah,
You know,
it probably
this-
doesn't
this
make any
doesn't-
sense there, but.
May not work.
okay.
But I guess from the city staff, it wasn't asked, would this layout be able to be a public road?
Yes, if this was all dedicated, where it says private access and the easement, they're meeting the same width standards as the rest of the roads in the development.
And who would have to agree to that for that to happen?
For that to be dedicated?
Yes.
It would just need to be on the subdivision plat that's also before you tonight.
Right, but because of this current easement, would it require an agreement between both parties?
Both parties would need to sign the subdivision plat.
They'd both be dedicated.
Dedicating the easement, okay. That could be held up in the one or the other wouldn't dedicate. Okay, and then it would have to
So even
be.
if we were to approve this the way it is, because it appears that it is, it is legal to be able to do it. The parties, at some point, the parties are still gonna have to agree on this between their attorneys and the property owners.
If they came in at a later date and decided to agree, and then they could file a road dedication plat, and the planning commission could approve that.
Okay, so if we were to approve it though, but they don't agree, then what happens from
Then
there?
it would be a private road. It would have to be a private road.
What if a court doesn't agree? Let's say they go to trial in the court.
Whatever the court says is what we do.
Okay.
then it would probably come back to you again for a reconsideration or.
Well, wouldn't it have to be like you'd have to almost do an eminent domain or something, wouldn't you, to get property?
There is a right of private condemnation that's out there, so if a court were to say that this easement is limited and the development doesn't have the right to use that easement, there, you know, and I didn't come prepared tonight to discuss that at all, but there is a right of private condemnation out there.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But it would cause problems for, if a court came back and, you know, imposed an injunction on the use of this to serve the subdivision, it would cause a lot of trouble.
Okay.
So I guess it's from my reading, the reason currently maybe that it's listed as a private road is because that's something that can be done without agreement. Even though it'd probably be in the city's and other people's best interest to have it be a public road, in my opinion. But that's written that way, probably because if there is an agreement, that's the way it's written. Okay, thank you for answering my questions, Mike.
And Brian, I have an additional question though, for where it is a legal road. We really aren't able to deny that as far as this body.
From the city's perspective, that's a valid easement at this point, and so it works. They have their two accesses, and so we would be in a spot that we wouldn't be able to deny that.
That's what I'm wondering. Okay,
Well,
go ahead.
let's say, you know, again, I'm like you, I'm just trying to get everything around it. So let's say we approve it, and there's an easement on your property. You don't agree to this. And you're going to pursue it to prevent it? Okay.
And of course, that's your right to be able to do that.
It's a danger to us.
Okay.
It's a danger to us. I can't imagine anyone in the room, you know, being willing to approve a private road on the north side of their home, right outside their bedroom window by what appears to be 6 feet. It's not 9 feet to the property line. It's more like 6.
We have 7 employees in here that literally work underneath cars.
Right.
It's a mechanic shop. It's a steel building.
Right.
There's rigid frames every 15 feet, but between that is girders that are very lightweight and
Okay.
sheet metal that's extremely thin. A
Yeah.
car would go right through it.
And I think we've read those letters. Are there comments from anyone else that anything different than what we've already heard? Okay. Can you state your name, sir?
Everybody keeps reverting to this private road like it's not gonna get traveled much. I worked on construction, big orange sign, road closed, do not travel through here. Everybody and their dog goes right through this with people working there if they can see an exit out the other side. So if that's open, that's private, it's just gonna be a sign. Everybody's gonna start traveling through there on a regular basis. But, so you kind of addressed what I was thinking, but one thing I was thinking, if it is a public road, they said it meets the width standards, is that correct? Okay. But does a public road get to sit right on the property line that close, or is there a setback it has to be from the property line?
You can come right up to the property.
Yeah. But I do think that points out one thing else that, you know, that I'm struggling with is that we have the picture of the private road that's there. But that private road is a dirt road that a few people drive on. Yes, but now we have a private road that 58 units are gonna access, right? I mean, it's a different animal, you know? And so to me, that's another thing that I'm trying to wrap my head around, you know, is yes, we wanna maintain this, but it's not the same.
What is the access out of it? That's not signal controlled, those are just right turn, left turn out, two-way turn lane out in the middle?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that you could do to, you know, if you wanted, sorry, those bumps they put in the speed bumps, you know, there's things like that you can, you know, if a private gate or something like that, that people have to go in and out to help slow that traffic down, so.
Yeah, is there any appetite to put, I mean, you have to close, if it's a private road, to actually put a you know, clicker gate to access that, then nobody would be traveling fast, you know, I mean, you wouldn't be, the speed would be eliminated, right? I mean, if you had to stop and wait for the gate to go up and stuff, and then that would be, what, less desirable way to go in and out, I'm guessing, but.
But if
that's
it
the
were
thing.
private, they'd be their choice too, to go ahead and put speed bumps on it,
Yeah.
and the city couldn't say anything about that if it's private.
Right, that's the thing, is if it's private, right, they could take they could put a gate on today and take it down tomorrow. There's really no regulation there on a,
Like, they couldn't necessarily put a gate on it, because if it's blocked off, then the whole development doesn't make sense, or that's not what we're approving.
well, I guess a movable gate that could be.
Are we approving this with two accesses?
Yes.
Yeah, it
Private
has to
road
have
with a
two
gate still
accesses.
qualifies as two
Does it?
access. The fire department has those Knox locks, or Knox keys, they're able to get through those gates.
Okay, right here and then Angie. Can you give your name, sir?
Yes, my name is Paul Hatchett, and I'm one of their technicians. I drive a lot of vehicles on and off that lot. And the timing of the lights is a big deal to me, personally, trying to get out on State Street.
Right.
I have to sit and wait, and we had 58 units with 3 parking lot stalls per unit. That's a lot of traffic coming in and out that's not timed by a stoplight. So sometimes I have to wait for the stoplights to do their thing, so a group of cars goes by, and I have access to the road. And, so this, putting that outlet from that subdivision so close to our property affects me every day, trying to get on and off the lot.
Okay.
I was just going back to what I brought up about the triangular piece right there. What is that even connecting to? And why isn't it just part of the HOA to be maintained along that road?
That triangle right there?
It's not part of the actual meets and bounds description. So what is that going to be?
What triangular piece are you talking about?
Right there.
Where Mike's got his arrow.
So you're saying that the Lindon Nursery will own both sides of that subdivision, and that little parcel is just gonna be non-conforming?
Landscaping or what? I don't know.
Do you know what that's gonna be?
Gonna be a separate parcel.
You know, that-
It will be the plats.
That is true. If it may not be a parcel, it may need to be incorporated in because it can't be its own parcel, it doesn't meet the minimum lot requirements, square footage requirements. So that may need to be incorporated into it,
Into what?
into the townhome.
The townhome development.
Okay.
I guess we can fit another unit or two there, huh?
Or visitor parking?
No.
Or wedding place?
Okay, just quickly, go ahead.
What is the minimum commercial lot size?
It's
1
1
acre.
acre.
Okay. Sir?
What, Neil Ashford,
Mhm.
what is the traffic flow estimate coming out of each of those exits?
I don't know that. I'm gonna refer to staff on that.
So the city engineer didn't require a traffic study for this development.
Can you imagine with that many units, how many vehicles be coming and going at least twice a day, maybe multiple times a day? And what's to keep additional units from being built piggybacked to the back of that development?
Well, as far as the development, that's, that's locked in by ordinance.
Okay.
Okay.
And if it's so nice to put a road 9 feet or whatever from a building, why wouldn't that road that's coming out just go straight, right where they've got the dotted lines? If they'd like to have it 9 feet from their building.
It breaks up their property, I guess that's the reason. Right.
And it doesn't appear based on no signals, it doesn't appear there's a benefit to go out one or the other. So I think you can probably anticipate a 50-50 split on people coming out, because there's no benefit to either one. No, not one is preferable over the other.
Yeah. Well, one has two commercial buildings there that's their primary access. This south one does not.
And then my final question is, with maybe it's more of a comment, with the heavy traffic, especially at specific times of day, which is probably when the ingress and egress would be being used the most. Heavily populated street. And to get on and off, and this is what he was addressing, to get on and off, sometimes it's pretty difficult. Extremely difficult.
Right. Okay.
Can I ask a hypothetical question of Mr. Daspert, maybe, and the developer? You see where the center line of that private access is?
Indicating the center of the road,
Yeah. What if that became the south edge of the road?
It would certainly improve safety.
How wide's that road?
32 feet, including curbs.
Now,
So it's only 15 feet.
I need to understand what you mean, Rob.
So if this edge became up to there,
Right.
so in other words, the road shifted up about 15 feet,
Mm-hmm.
and that would get off most of the easement, Mr. Dasper's easement. A little bit there right at the edge by State Street.
Well, and
The
it
very
it
end,
would
but-
give a boundary there.
The very end of it that goes into State Street, the existing access here shown is the existing entry. I think the road should go there. I really do. For a couple of reasons. It would be easy to match up with 500 North across the street. Hopefully, eventually, we hypothetically hope that, rainbows and sunshines, we get a light there.
Okay.
Within this last year, we had 2 4-car accidents coming out of the nursery park. One of them ended up on our grass.
Okay.
There's gonna be a substantially larger amount of traffic with these 58 homes and the 80
Right.
whatever across the street. One of their accesses for that other development goes to 500 North. So I would hope that eventually we can get a light there.
Well, if that road shifted up to the center line, just hypothetical, would that work for the developer?
So where that road goes isn't really important to me, but it is important to the Plats. And they haven't chimed in yet. And everything I've done from the beginning has been to work with them and at the same time try to mitigate any safety or other concerns with Dasper Auto. But yeah, that affects the Plats business. To lose.
But it doesn't divide the property like.
No, but I think that's a taking from Ed that, he's not interested in. So that's what.
I think we have a hand at the back. I think it's Mr. Platt.
Yeah, what I'm saying.
Since my name's been raised.
I'm trying to not use it in vain, Ed.
Ed Platt. Moving the road north and splitting our property makes no sense to us, especially if it were moved as much as 50 feet north.
But what about 15 feet?
Then we give up 15 feet of property, the full length of that road. Could we live with that? Probably, yes. But if you move it, the more you move it north, then the more unusable ground you create. Devin mentioned that Cooks have pieces of property all over. Yeah, but they're big pieces of property.
And he's talking about shade.
Okay.
Let's talk about growing stuff in shade.
Okay, okay.
Sorry, I had to say it.
So Devin mentioned that at one time we sell him a piece of that 45-foot piece of property there in order to make this work for him and for us. He turned that down mostly because the city then would have required him to put in 20 feet of landscaping. So he's paying for 45 feet of property and then having to put in 20 feet of landscaping, which didn't work for him, and I understand that completely. But it's completely unworkable for us to move that road a considerable distance north.
But if it were like 15 feet, why would that be completely unworkable?
I didn't say that. I said 15 feet we could probably make work, but we're still giving up 15 feet of ground, what, 400 feet long, which is a considerable amount of square footage.
You don't have to buy it,
Kinda makes a dead piece too.
because you're gonna be buying it back, right?
Well, the agreement we have with Jeff's development firm is that at this point, whatever they need to put in the road, they will be buying, well, they have bought from us, and they will deed back to us whatever they don't need to put in the road.
Okay,
So there's no cash required from that.
okay. Well, thank you very much then, and I think we'll just, we've had enough public input, and I think we'll just go ahead and bring the discussion back up. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can I ask one more question of staff before we get in there? I'm just, 370 north, is there anything preventing that from being access to the property below eventually?
Yeah, so different zoning, so that's a R120 zone, and so, yeah, it has different roadway standards. That would only be for 20,000 square foot, single-family lots, so.
Right, but I guess, could this be the access to that, though?
No, it's not on our master plan, and so, we wouldn't grant it.
So with the hammerhead turnaround there and everything, that's what they're doing instead of
That's what they're
cul-de-sac?
doing,
and
yep,
They're saying it's ending there?
yes.
Okay, because there's a sizable elk farm down there right
Yeah.
now, but, you know, that could complicate this whole traffic issue if it was ever allowed to go through.
And we've already got a permanent 7-foot masonry wall in place. I guess those can be taken out, but absolutely it's.
And it's not on the master plan to go
Yeah,
through.
it's not planned to be anything that is a through. Moving that road benefits Dastrup, and so I can understand why he wants that. I think the guise of safety is how he's hoping to pick up additional land. I'm happy to put, if I have to, a 7-foot wall all along that, but then that's gonna block his showroom. You know, somebody mentioned, could you do this or that? And he said, well, but what about the visibility to us? That's an important aspect of his business as well. And we understand that. But the bollards that are not required by the national standards for roads and highways, or a 7-foot masonry wall there to protect his building, we'd do something like that. I would do that easily before taking away any more ground from the Platts. I don't think trying to take property from them is reasonable. And so we made a proposal to them, like his attorney mentioned. We would love for it to be a public road, but I think the city attorney has been very clear that this can't be denied because it's a private access, and we meet all of the requirements for the approvals. And so we're gonna plan that road to meet the public road requirements in hopes that Dastrup may be willing to dedicate his portion. Our offer to him, which we didn't need to do, says if he dedicates his portion and we dedicate ours and it becomes a public road, we will run pressurized irrigation and stub it to his property, which would cost him $80,000 to $100,000 to bore under State Street and do that. We're willing to do that as part of our overall development. I have to provide pressurized irrigation to the Platts. we need it for our subdivision, we're willing to do that if he's willing to dedicate. And then those weird little triangular pieces that we own that go south of the easement, we're willing to give him those too. So we clean up property lines, everything's taken care of, and everybody wins, and he gets a big benefit, I think. Financially, safety, we'll make sure we meet any of those requirements. We're going above and beyond anything that the engineers have asked us to do. And so I really believe it's a red herring looking for a way to expand his property. And yet, we meet all of the requirements. And so we have figured out and worked closely with staff, with the engineers, with the city attorney to make sure that we are legally compliant. When we closed on the land a couple of months ago, we closed on 2 parcels. So we noticed on Monday, like was mentioned, something's going on with the meets and bounds. We closed on 2 existing parcels. I don't know why the county has recorded them differently, if there's a gap in, I think, Michael, that there's a gap maybe in what the county had for the parcels, and that's why a 3rd parcel was created. But we didn't do anything to record anything on these properties. Just to be clear, we closed on the 2 existing parcels that the plats had, and then the plat that's going to be approved will kind of clean everything up and make sure that everything's as it should be. We've been expecting that this odd little triangular piece here would go back to the plats because we don't need it, we meet our requirements, etc. If it's a non-conforming use and the city says, yeah, that can't stay with them because it's on the other side of a road, then that'll have to go with us. It probably is enough land that we could add a unit or 2. I'm not looking to do that, but you know, we're already under the 10 by half a unit per acre or something like that. So we'll have to figure out with staff. That's kind of a surprise. None of us really contemplated that. I think, are there any other questions for me? I think I've expressed everything that I felt was important, and hopefully we've been able to answer any questions. We obviously do not want anybody's safety in question, but all of the engineers believe without bollards or anything else, it's safe, and yet we're willing to do more. We're not willing to move the road 15 feet. I think that is an unnecessary taking from the plats. Ed is a really nice guy and wants to avoid any difficult discussions. And that's part of the reason that I'm here, to help protect him. And so I think the way this has been planned and designed, and we've crossed all our T's and dotted all our I's. So if there's no other questions, we'll have a seat.
Anybody have questions? I think we've asked the questions.
Thank you.
Thank
Maybe
you.
one question over here, and maybe this is a question of Mr. Platt. This little narrow strip that's behind the residential and west of the block wall.
I'm sorry, where?
Is that this?
No, to the left.
Are you talking about Llama Lane?
Yeah, the lane.
Oh,
It's been deeded over to Denny Farley. It's recorded that way.
Okay, all right. Okay.
That was part of the cleanup too. It made sense to have him own that. Is that it?
Okay. Well, let's bring the discussion to the commission now. Thank you. Steve, do you want to express your thoughts?
You're gonna make me go first, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, this is, what we're dealing with right now is only the conditional use permit, the item
Which-
number 4.
Okay.
And it's conditional to build
townhomes.
the townhomes. Okay.
We've provided some recommended conditions. You can add to those. Mainly it was the only condition that staff added was that the applicant work with owner of Dastrop Auto to install the barriers to protect the gas meter in northwest corner of the building, and that the delivery vehicles for the Lindon nursery not use the residential street behind the nursery for deliveries or traffic circulation.
And does this have anything to do with the fence change, or is that another
No,
motion?
that's,
That'd be with the site plan approval.
For everyone who's been to all these meetings, they would know that these aren't my favorite projects, but this is not the time to go over that, because that has been decided by our elected officials. And our job as a planning commission is to evaluate whether the proposals meet what our elected officials have enacted into law. And that's the great part of where we live, is we have elected officials who, you know, create law, and then we get to implement it. And so the only question I had, and Mike, you don't have to pull it up if it is, does this meet close to what was approved by the elected officials? You know, that was my question, you know, because that was part of the ordinance, was that they needed to do a site plan at that time. I don't know if that was
No, that's
attached.
the wrong one. This was the previous one, so yeah, it's very close.
It's very close. Okay.
So these are 6 plexes now, this is a 4-plex now.
Yeah, but that, I just wanted to see that it looked, so, you know, my opinion as a planning commission member is that we tried to mitigate any conditions, and I think the staff's done a good job with that, and like I said, as much as I personally don't like the development, I think it meets, and we're ready to move forward. Those are my opinion.
I think 2 things is, I mean, one thing I just have a comment about is just that triangular piece. What's gonna happen with it? you
Yes,
know,
yeah.
with that.
That could be a condition to the motion, correct? That be worked out, figured out, or does it
Yeah,
need
I
to
mean,
be
if they are gonna add units there, I think that
Well,
sort of
that's
throws
all-
everything in.
That'd be a whole nother.
changes everything.
Yeah, that'd be a whole nother animal.
But to,
Time to add units.
I would just,
but to dedicate it as open space or parking, like someone
yeah,
said.
I would love it for it to be extra parking, but I know parking is expensive, so.
So how would we word that condition on that? On that
That'll be
triangular
on the site
piece?
plan.
Would that be on the site plan or? what
Probably on the site
conditions?
plan that the developer
Okay.
work with staff to determine how that's incorporated into the development.
Okay. So it wouldn't be on this
No.
motion.
Okay, Scott?
Well, they've indicated they are willing to do additional safety measures.
Yes.
At what point, where do we put those on these 3 things?
And those weren't known when I put the staff report together.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, so where.
That would go under the conditional, probably the conditional use permit, because
Conditional
you're
use, he's
mitigating
got
the
that as
impact
a-
of that.
Okay.
As one of the conditions already.
So, yeah, I guess with that, for the conditional use port, let's put a item 3, then move all staff to number 4, of something like the parties will mitigate that. I mean, I think that's the problem, I guess, is they can't come up with what the mitigation is, but I don't know well enough.
I have an idea that.
Okay,
thought-
I don't know.
I was gonna make it under the site plan, but maybe I
Over.
should talk about it, and then you tell me if it needs to go under the condition. And
Okay.
that is, I think that the 7-foot wall, let me get to my site plan here. Yeah, you see where it says private road, where it starts there? Can you put a pointer on that?
Here.
Yeah, and then go over behind the building and then up to right there. So I think along that southern line there ought to be a concrete fence.
The only problem, the gas meter, I believe, sits about here, and you've got the corner building. You would have to have a see-through fence or bollards to keep that clear view area for traffic leaving the Dash Strip Auto.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute.
Or you couldn't block the site, sorry,
Yeah,
but the visual site.
right.
Yeah. I think, you mean the traffic leaving the Dash Strip Auto?
The egress of the Dash Strip Auto.
Yeah, you
But
can
why
see,
would that fence block that?
you've got a curb return here, I believe, on the aerial photo. Yeah, Dash Strip has, so let me go to Google Maps real quick.
Well, I think putting a block wall there would mitigate some of the safety issues that we're talking about. The developer has said he's willing to do that. Even if you had to move the gas meter, it's not that expensive to move the gas meter. It's,
someone else's face.
well, I don't think that's a fair comment. Okay, then let's take the wall out to State Street. Then it'll cost you a little bit.
Okay, let's keep the comments
But
with
there's
the
been
commission.
but there's also been concerns about his employees showing cars right there as well. So the same safety, for the same
You'd have a
safety reasons,
3-foot
you'd put it
block
belong the wall, you'd have to put something out to protect, if we're talking safety.
Yeah, let's keep the comments with the commission. We've had
So
enough
anyway, that's
public input.
my thought, is to make that a condition that fence go up there to protect the safety of Mr. Dastrup's workers. And,
Yeah, on that corner, like I said, you would have to do bollards or something so people could see as oncoming traffic.
Now, Rob, are you suggesting the fence go all the way around the curb? Would that then basically
well,
landlock that little piece we've been talking about?
I don't think it need to go
I don't know that it needs to go all the way up there, but, you know, past the building a little ways.
A few feet past or whatever.
Okay,
I think that mitigates some of the concerns, especially the concerns of the gentleman who are inside of a tin building on a lift.
Nicer than
It's
Jersey
gonna
barriers.
It's gonna protect
so
them.
how tall a fence would you suggest?
7 feet, same as what he's got everywhere else.
Okay,
So just make sure I understand that so the fence would just go maybe the length of the building?
Maybe a little longer.
little longer.
Little longer to protect the corner, so to go a little bit further to the west than the building.
Like you could probably.
And it'd fall short of the east of the building, just to create the,
Like you could probably only go to here.
right, and then go to the west, right to there.
Stop
yeah.
right in there.
Well, maybe follow the property line
Yeah,
more
just-
than the
Yeah, don't
road.
follow the road, follow the property line by a few feet beyond their building, maybe
Yeah,
5 feet beyond the building.
don't follow the road.
Follow-
the property.
If you follow the property line,
What
that
happened if you
opens
followed
up.
the property line all the way? Would that cosmetically look better?
Well, if they're gonna use that as
Well,
open
and the
space, it would make sense to fence it in for the development. You know, it depends on what they use it for.
Yeah, that's true. If it ends up being just landscape, they might not wanna do any more fencing there.
Right.
If it
But-
just
or
ends
if-
up being a landscape.
If it's landscaped, or if it ends up being grass,
Yeah.
a place that people could go and sit on or whatever, then they'd
Well-
probably want it.
Technically, why isn't there a block wall there anyway?
Because I mean,
Because it's a residential project up against a commercial property.
so the developer has put a wall right up to this point.
Right?
Right. But I guess what we're saying, if that piece has to be incorporated into the development, by
But it-
default, you'd think then would just move that
Yeah.
that wall down to that property line.
is that feasible?
I would talk
Because-
to the developer.
The block
About
wall
that.
is supposed to be put up between residential and commercial.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that'll save that money from the gas line and you can put it in more fence.
okay. Jared, do you have any additional comments?
Not really. We spent a lot of time, I think, on an issue that is really between these two property owners and not so much in our purview, because our city engineers have passed off on it. I think it's being a good neighbor to maybe put some safety things in there, and I do validate that concern. I've had crazy things happen on my commercial building lot that are just beyond comprehension, where people have gone through my fence from both directions. I don't even know how it happened, but it's happened twice. So I do validate that, but I think we've just spent a lot of time on things that need to happen between these two parties.
Okay, Mike?
You know what, anything I would say would be repetitive of whatever's already been said, so.
And my feelings are, just from what our engineers have said, our staff and our city attorney, if it's in compliance, then we don't really have we can't really deny it. I wish something could be worked out between the two property owners, though. It's difficult for me to say, to have one property owner say, well, I won't budge, and you know, and it cause problems for the other property owner. I think the fence is a really good idea. And I agree with Jared. I don't think we've seen the end of this as far as between the two property owners. I think it will go a ways further and may come back to us. But that's not something we can control. So.
I think your condition's fine how it is, and then you add the fence requirement of the site plan approval.
Do we need to circle
Okay.
back to the fencing, the wrought
So
iron
do we,
fencing?
on that first condition, work with Astor Auto to install and protect? Would that go with the site plan then?
No, this will be as part of the condition to mitigate that
Okay.
that safety concern, so.
Okay,
I
but
think-
but then, as far as the fence itself, that would go with the site plan. Okay, are we ready for a motion? Mike, how about if you make a motion?
Okay.
Okay,
I move to approve the applicant's request for conditional use permit approval to develop a 58-unit residential townhome development located at approximately 531 North State Street with the following conditions. The applicant will work with the owner of Dash Strip Auto to install barriers or fencing to protect gas meter and northeast corner of the Dash Strip Auto Repair Building. The delivery vehicles, number 2, the delivery vehicles for the Lindon Nursery not use the residential streets behind the nursery for deliveries or traffic circulation. And number 3, all items of the staff report with a number 4 addition that the dash strips and the developer work together to satisfy fencing or whatever the barrier is
okay.
between the two.
Is that?
Or does
okay.
that not to be on that?
I think you could do that as
On the
site plan
Okay,
approval.
so as the number 1, 2, and 3 issues are stated, I'll leave it at that.
I'll second the 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting's unanimous. Uh-huh.
Sharon, you seconded that.
I seconded.
Scott Thompson. And thank you for whoever's been here for that. This next item on the agenda, item number 5, is the site plan. So welcome to stay for that if you'd like to. Okay. Okay, and Mike is our
We've got recommended conditions for you. We did recommend on number 1, the ornamental fence, because that was the petition of the developer. So that would need to be a discussion as well if you are okay with number 1. Number 2, that the applicant will meet the architectural design standards of the overlay zone, that the development will provide both passive and active open spaces as outlined in the development plan, that the rear yard setbacks for units 119 through 140 be reduced to 10 feet. Those are those interior units. That the applicant will continue to work with the city engineer to make all final corrections to the engineering documents, and the plans will meet the development specifications as found in the Lindon City Development Manual and all items of the staff report.
With the addition of
And then,
the
yes,
condition of the fencing along the south border between the dash strip repair shop.
Do we need to do anything about that funny little triangle piece? Should that be a condition that's
Yeah.
brought into the development?
And it might be good to kind of get specific on where do you want the fence just behind the building? Do you want it to follow the property line? Up to connect?
my recommendation would it be north of the building on the property line, and that it extend west over to the other fence. So that triangular piece becomes part of the project rather than a.
Well, and once that's become a part of the project, by code, I think he has to fence that.
Yeah, I think
Because it
so, too.
separates residential and commercial.
Just specificity would help.
Yep.
just so, you know, awesome.
Can I clarify one item? That corner comes south of what we thought would be the plat. So if this needs to become part of the project, then it would make sense to go here and then that way.
Correct.
Yes.
So that I make this backyard bigger.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. You just follow the property line.
Yeah, that's fine. It's not required because this is commercial to commercial. When you talk residential to commercial, I'm commercial, they're residential.
It's a resident.
But
No.
once
Once you're overlaid.
it says a
Once
residential
it becomes
residential.
part of
or
your property.
zone.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I would rather it go like that,
Yeah, that's
following
fine.
the property line.
Follow the property line, yes.
Perfect.
Okay, and staff, do you have any additional discussion on this, or, commissioners?
I guess we need to just discuss the ornamental fence and the 10-foot, reduced
The
10-foot
10-foot,
setbacks.
Right. And as far as, as far as the ordinance reads, if they've got enough common space to compensate for the reduced, the reduced backyards to 10 foot, they can do that.
And we have also done that on the previous projects as well,
Right.
where we reduced to 10
Right.
feet because of open space. So
Right.
I think we sort of
Right.
need to follow those guidelines as
Right.
well.
Right.
Or precedent, I guess we should call it.
And from what I understand from the staff report, they have provided enough common open space.
Yep. I just
So-
had one question from a member of the public, just Jeff, if you could confirm, is 118 and 107, are those 30 feet rear yards?
On the actual plat map, I couldn't see the actual numbers.
So that line right there and 118, are those both 30 feet?
I'm positive they are, or they wouldn't have been designed, do you know what I mean? And so that.
So
that
these are
fence
actually
moves
more
a
than
little
30
bit.
feet here.
Right.
Okay.
He had to make sure that it was at least 30.
That's what I figured, but on the actual plat map, the other lots all show the measurement, but those two didn't. So I was just wondering. Well, not on that one, it was the other one that you were just.
So I'm just seeing if this. So on the site plan,
No, it was down.
I think she meant the one at the
Page
bottom.
27,
oh, the one with the building numbers.
yeah, and it showed all the other backyard setbacks that were at the corners, but those two I couldn't see.
Sorry, I think I froze the computer. Oh, there we go.
But if,
So those say 30. Yeah, I don't, we'll confirm that that's,
Yeah, well, obviously,
they're required to have, they have to have the 30 according to the ordinance.
we'll just take it out of the roadway.
There you go.
I know, that's what I was worried about.
Smaller
Do they actually have
driveways.
enough room? So,
I'm sure they just didn't, the engineer didn't call it 30, because it goes from 30 to probably 40.
However deep.
Yeah,
it ends up
however
being.
deep those back lots are.
Yeah, like number 113 is probably the
Those
deepest.
will be nice backyards.
Yeah, that'll be, I can check that tomorrow
Yeah.
morning. That's easy to check.
Yep. You can't snap a line with the tools on your computer there, can you?
This one doesn't have blue
Okay.
beam on it, but if you want me to run downstairs, I can do
No,
it
no,
in 2
we can
seconds,
just-
so.
yeah.
But
You'll-
it's required no matter
It's
what.
required.
the
You'll
30 feet.
resolve it.
It'll be part of the staff review.
Yes, that question.
Yeah, So to me, the real question, right, is the fence.
The 7-foot ornamental fence.
And I can see for the nursery, the benefit. I'm struggling to see the benefit in the future for the residents. I mean, if it changes, right, or if they change it, as long as I think as long as the plants are growing plants are, it'll be a beautiful view. It's,
And it does eliminate that compound feel of having
Yeah.
concrete walls on all four sides of the residential project. You know, it could be mitigated in the future if that did turn into a non-nursery type use, with fabric, you know, via the ornamental iron, but, because I don't see us requiring, I don't see us being able to require, another user to put up a wall that should have gone up now versus later.
right.
Have, you know, yeah, which is hard because
Yeah, the
if
conditional
you've already
use.
got a use with outdoor storage.
Exactly.
And so that would be hard.
I guess my other possible concern is when you have, sight, then you're gonna have wind, you're gonna have sound, you're gonna have dust, you're gonna have debris, you're gonna have smells if there's I mean, those things will also then, right, more freely go into the development. And I guess, that would be, I guess my concern back to, what was happening with the cars with that strip. If I was one of those homes and I constantly had a inch of nice topsoil coming over onto my porch, that would be my concern, right? And I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud here, but that would be my concern with the 7-foot ornamental fence versus but there's,
solid surface
on the other
fence.
side, like I said, I can see the benefits, that not feeling like a compound, it'll look beautiful, so those are my concerns. I don't have an answer, but those are maybe
But,
for
you
us to
know-
discuss as a commission.
What triggers our authority to do this? It just gives us the discretion to do it?
Well, because you're supposed to have, again, going back to the south wall, you're supposed to have a wall between the commercial and residential.
But it does give us the discretion. Nothing triggers that discretion.
It triggers, it says unless approved by the planning commission.
So their request is what triggers the thought here.
So, but I guess my feelings are as far as the compound thing, this is a whole separate development. It is a whole separate use, it is completely different from the nursery. So, if we wanted, and I'm not saying I want to, but if we wanted to require that solid surface fence, I don't have an issue with that as far as aesthetics. Because if the use changes, then we probably could not go back and require it at that point. And so I guess part of that would be protection of the development.
The homeowners for the future.
How would you
Right.
feel about going a lesser height?
Like
Like
what height?
maybe a 5-footer instead, or whatever the common next denominator down is for a standard 6-foot wall? Yeah. Just to make it not look too.
That would reduce the
And it-
compound feel.
Well, it'd reduce that, and it would also keep any debris on the side of the fence it's being created on.
And it would also be protection in case the use changes.
Mhm.
That's my concern.
At this corner here, you're still gonna have to have something that's see-through on that corner, so you can
Yeah.
see any oncoming traffic, but,
Or it could reduce down to,
or it could
3
reduce
feet
to
or
3
something.
feet.
And does it end, it ends there, right? On each end? Where would the fence end?
Yeah, Jeff just confirmed, yeah, it ends here and in here, right in here somewhere, or, you haven't decided that yet.
Well, the nursery has to be fenced all the way around.
But it doesn't need to be that kind of fence all the way around. Yeah.
For my personal
For your own, yeah,
taste, I don't care whether it's wrought iron or concrete,
yeah.
but it's gotta be fenced all the way around.
Can we go to the Google Maps?
Yeah.
I don't have that much of a strong feeling of solid fence. I think, I like solid fences. I like wrought iron fences too, especially looking into a nursery would be fine. But look at the front of that. You see all those lawnmowers there? What if those were decided to be put on the wrought iron fence? Is that a problem?
None of us like all those lawnmowers. And the reason they're there is because of the process that this has gone through.
Oh.
We would normally have them back stored in sheds and greenhouses.
Okay. Well, I only use it as an example, is what if, what if what if you sold Lindon Nursery and they decided to put all their broken down lawnmowers against the wrought iron fence? I think then we got a problem. And there's no teeth to make them change it, I guess. That's the one thought.
Yeah, I agree.
So 6-foot wall feels less compound. That's my biggest concern.
Yes, yes. I would say a 6-foot wall, and then it would probably taper to less down at the north end for site obstruction for traffic.
Less or see-through, whatever, to meet clear view requirements.
I mean, I guess if Ed was gonna go to a wrought iron the rest of the way, I mean, however he was gonna fence it, I mean, I'm fine for the clear view to go to at that point, right? Versus taper down and then go up to what protects his property. He probably wants at least a 6-foot versus a taper down. Protect his nursery. Jumping. Because I mean, if it's a 3-foot concrete, that's pretty easy for people to jump over.
I guess they could even go to a wrought iron transition between the two or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, just a section that you could posts and wrought iron in between,
Right.
just for site obstruction, then continue whatever
Then
he
can-
chooses.
Whatever he chooses, yeah.
Okay. And then, also on the architectural design standards, we need to decide on, because the ordinance reads that there has to be a contrasting color around the windows. And then also, there's some, you said some,
Window elements.
window elements that need to
If
be
you're
added.
okay letting me just work that out, I'd be glad.
We're fine with letting you work that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as it meets the ordinance. Okay. Are we ready for a motion? Have we got anything else to work out?
Well, where are we at on the fence? I mean,
Well,
if I'm okay with everything except for the fence, because I would rather see a solid fence. Personally, I want to see a community, I want to make it feel residential. I want to block out the commercial with a fence
I'm the
and/or
same way.
vegetation. So trees, there's not park strip on the west side, but maybe trees planted on the east side, on the Lindon Nursery side. I think, again, that makes it feel more residential than
Right.
sort of this.
Fence.
Well, I'm okay with the 7-foot fence. Again, if I'm living there, I want it to feel like residential, not that I'm next door to commercial.
See, I don't have that feeling of it being, blocked in like that. I agree with,
I mean, there could be a
Jared.
whole nother building that goes up there in 20 years that's taller, that's, I don't know, I just
For
think.
sure it'll be taller than either 6 or 7 feet.
yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, even having vegetation there growing up in the next 20 years, you've got 20-foot trees now that sort of
And the setback,
buffer this between.
and the setback on the rear yard is 5 feet, or if they were to put say hypothetically speaking, someone to come put a building.
It'd be 0. You just
It'd
have
be
to be
0. They
40,
could put it-
you have to be 40
They
feet
could put
from
it
a
right on the
residence.
fence line.
But
The next user could put a 20-foot building, 20-foot tall building.
Well, do you want to go with the 6-foot? I mean, it
guess.
sounds like we're all in favor of a solid surface fence.
What-
And you want to go with 6-foot or 7-foot, except in the clear view?
So for those people who are in construction, why would we have chosen 7 feet? It seems like that's an odd,
it is we get well, Jeff's my number one pushback, but it is harder to find a 7-foot precast.
I mean, I remember when we built our building, we we ended up with the neighbor deciding we put vinyl because the vinyl people right next to us. But it made absolutely no sense to put 7-foot fence, so we put an 8-foot fence,
Yeah.
because they come in 2-foot increments, right? And we would have preferred to have a 6-foot fence.
Well,
And so I guess,
Except right now it's
in
part of the
commercial, you do
ordinance.
it because, first of all, it's a lot harder to scale the fence and go over. And there's a lot of people that are taller than 6 feet and can see over, and just for security reasons.
well, then that makes
In
sense.
residential, you don't normally do a 7-foot
But
fence.
I guess with that, is 7, and this is for a whole future discussion, but should we make it 8? You know, is that more
That
standard?
seems really
But-
high.
So from what I've been told, if you're doing precast, there's only 1 or 2 companies that do the precast at 7 feet. It's harder to find that. It's easier at the 6 and 8 feet, 8-foot precast.
So the 6 is probably substantially cheaper, I would anticipate, because it's more readily available, or
I
not
don't know.
necessarily?
I mean, I guess it
It's
could,
all
could,
math, it's all math with the products that go into it.
you know,
So
so I
what,
guess,
what,
could
you've
we
already
say
put
7
in
or
a
more?
lot of fence, right?
80% of it.
And how tall is it?
7.
So you didn't have any problem finding it,
So you could match it up
No,
with,
it was not easy to find.
but you found it.
But yeah, we got it.
but you could
Well,
match
I'd
it up
probably
with
have
what
you
you've
match
got.
then.
Just match
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I would, again, I'd love to see 6 between us and the nursery and make it more decorative, like we did along the red barn.
I think that,
It just feels compoundy to me. Anyways.
I like Jeff's idea of the more decorative, if,
So do I.
you know, that, because the other one is more of a kind of an interstate type fence, so I think you,
And it does become the front view of those units that are
Yeah.
facing it.
Well, and that's why it feels more compound, is because you designed it to have those units facing that. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I mean, if it was backing up to that, it wouldn't feel compoundy. So it's only because of the design and the layout of the subdivision that it would feel that way, in my opinion.
Okay, what do you want to go with? 6 foot, 7 foot?
Let's just put a minimum of 6 foot.
Mi-
If they wanna do
What if we said
7,
minimum,
they can do 7.
we'll switch it to 6 if it's decorative?
that's a good idea.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a
But
compromise on
it's
both
solid
sides.
surface.
It could be a 6-foot decorative
Concrete decorative fence.
fence versus 7 feet
Minimum
to make
6
it
foot
decorative.
Concrete decorative fence.
Yes.
Okay,
And there's no elevation change at all right there.
I
To where-
say that, but the way we're running north and south, most of the elevation changes east to west. So I believe it will just be, no elevation change.
So if I'm standing on the Lindon Nursery side, it's really only 6 feet.
Correct, it would be 6 feet on
it's a
both
good thing
sides.
I'm not
There's
this
not gonna be
way.
any of this or anything like that.
Correct.
Okay, I think we've got that worked out. A minimum of 6 feet concrete decorative fence with a clear vision where it needs to be, with the wrought iron where the clear vision needs to be down at that one end. Is
Yeah.
that right? Okay. And as far as the architectural design standards, you will work that through with him on the windows.
So I would, so number 1, you'd change to the 7-foot masonry,
6 foot.
or 6-foot decorative.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum 6 foot.
Add that the additional property be included,
Mm-hmm.
and that the fence follow the south property line.
Okay, fence.
The
follow-
the 7-foot masonry fence follow the south property line.
Okay. Okay, and we decided that the common open spaces, passive and active common open spaces would, we could feel good about approving the 10-foot rear yard setbacks because of that.
Yes.
And of course, work with the city engineer and meet the specifications in the development manual and the staff report. Is there anything else? Okay, do we need to wait for Mike to come back to, to make a motion?
You
Or
you have a
can we-
quorum.
We've got a quorum. Okay, do I have someone that's willing to make a motion on this?
I can try if you,
Okay,
if you
go
help
ahead.
me to make sure I get them all
Okay.
in there,
Uh-huh.
okay? I move to approve the applicant's request for site plan approval for the property located at 531 North State Street with the following conditions. 1, the development will be allowed at least, or a 6-foot or higher decorative solid surface fence or concrete
Masonry or
masonry fence between the nursery and the townhomes with an allowance for sight.
Clear vision, yeah.
Clear vision. Number 2, the applicant will meet the architectural design standards of the planned residential development overlay zone, which staff will administer. The development will provide both passive and active common spaces as outlined in the development plan. Number 4, the rear yard setback for units 119 through 140 be reduced to 10 feet. 5, the applicant will continue to work with the city engineer to make all final corrections to the engineering documents. 6, the plans will meet development specification as found in the Lindon City Development Manual. Number 7, that the triangular piece will be included in the development. Number 8, that the south fence will follow the property line.
I think that would have been
That'd be the south block wall.
The south?
Yes, yep.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
The south will, the masonry fence will follow the south property line.
The 7-foot masonry.
East edge of the
Up to the east edge of the building is a possible safety measure. Yeah, to allow sight line on that. And I think that makes it number 9, all items of the staff report.
Okay, I thought that sounded good with an outside maid.
Yep.
Okay. We have a quorum, so we would.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we have a motion, all in favor?
Second.
We need a second.
Oh, excuse me, we have a motion.
I'll
It's
second.
getting late. Okay, and we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous on that. Okay, and as far as the conditional use permit, thank you for being here, appreciate it. As far as the conditional use permit and the site plan, do those go to the city council?
No, you just gave final
They don't.
approval for those.
Okay, that's what I understood. But now, item number 6 is the major subdivision, and that does go to
That does
the-
go to council, yep.
Okay, that goes to council. Okay, do you have any additional discussion on that for us?
No, the only condition I think you could add is if, because there was an original subdivision plat over there, and with those property lines that have been changed and things, I think that you, I don't know, do we put that as a condition to correct the underlying subdivision, or do we
This is
just
just a
work that out?
recommendation. No, I think that that's an appropriate addition to this motion.
Rentals, please.
Yeah, the underlying subdivision that, it's called the Lindon Nursery, that the underlying Lindon, Lindon Nursery subdivision, be amended, as part of this project, yeah. Sorry, what was that?
Consistent with this current project.
Okay. Yeah, so the Lindon Nursery subdivision be amended consistent with this development.
Okay, now, just for my education, why do we need to do that?
What's
Yeah,
that, yeah, what's
so
that,
let
what's
me-
that issue?
Yeah, so this plat was recorded,
October 24th, 1997.
yeah, 1997, sorry, I zoomed in too far. So this little lane here,
It's gone.
we should have done a plat amendment for that. And then any of these lot lines that may have been moved should have been done by a plat amendment. So we probably need to come in and correct this so it's done. Because you're the ones that should have given the approval for any amendments to this.
Okay, so, but if we have that condition, Lindon Nursery subdivision be amended consistent with this development, that covers that?
Yeah, that should take care of it.
Yeah.
Okay, as an additional condition? Okay. Okay, do we have any other questions as far as the major subdivision? And this is just a recommendation to the,
That's number 4, let's make sure we're clear on number 4, because that's a possibility if they go to court, if they don't,
Right.
if they don't agree. If the applicant and Dassler Auto are not able to agree on dedicating the south entrance as a public street, then an additional easement will be recorded prior to recording the plat that creates the required access width. So what are we saying there?
So that's that additional.
That red area.
Oh, that's the green area.
The green area
Right.
from the
green
plats.
Right. I don't think we need any conditions regarding
I guess not
what
from the
happens
plats,
if
from the
they do
southeast.
litigate. We'll leave that, a court will tell us what to do.
Well, and that green area is totally in their control.
Right.
Correct, okay, that's what it's referring
from
to.
what you said, if the courts come back with a change to what our decision's been, then we just go with their counsel. Okay.
Only to the easement.
So I guess, just not to go, let's say the court says there's not a valid easement for whatever reason. Does that, then, do we need to put anything in there that this project doesn't have 2 accesses and then it doesn't work?
We'll just have to cross that road if we come to it.
Okay,
It's really speculative at this point.
right. I just don't know if we need a condition in there saying
No,
that,
I don't think we want to add any conditions. We will just have to address those issues if they come up. There will be issues that will have to be addressed, but I think they're outside the purview of what we're doing tonight.
and I guess what you're saying is according to Lindon's counsel, they believe it is a valid
Yeah.
easement, and so we're going forward based upon that. Perfect.
I have one comment. There's one thing that's really bothered me about this project, and all through this process of doing these overlay zones and these townhomes and these apartments, I've said, I'm concerned with these projects becoming rentals. And I don't feel comfortable with the ease that, which the developer said that 70% of these could be rentals. I don't know if there's anything we can do to have control of that to some degree. Why is it just the, well, as Angie said, can we put it in the CC&Rs?
We can request them to do that. On the other parcel that we did with that, we actually made that a condition of the zone change.
Right.
We didn't do that in this case.
Like we said, it was a learning curve, and we should have.
I think I'd hate to be that 30% who can't.
So the zone change, it's not in our ordinance, it's not there. I just don't think we can come back legally and require it at this point.
That being said though, Brian, hasn't the new state legislation kind of affect what we're talking about here as far as rentals and affordable housing, and cities are a little bit got their hands tied now to
Yeah,
be.
and that's a good point, Mike. That is a good
I don't
point.
think it would apply to this because it's townhomes, but still regardless, this point we made, the HOA can come in after the fact, which I get isn't necessarily.
Yeah, it's certainly not an easy process. It's pretty, a lot of hurdles to jump through, but.
But it can be done.
I agree with you.
I'm sorry, what?
I say I agree with you, that's one of the things that, about this, that's, it's, you know,
I think all of us feel that same way.
all of us feel it, there's nothing they can do about
What
it,
about
so.
saying that they're, see, I'm trying to think about using the situation where only a certain number of non-family members can be in the same.
That has really been hammered by the state legislature.
That's one of the main things they've hammered.
I agree. I wish that we would have thought about that in the process and made it part of the zone change. And, you know, I just hope in the good interest of the city that the developer will think as much as they can and would want to put as much as they could into that. But it's an economic decision for the developer at this point, and you know, it's something that if I'm still on this board at times, you know, something I would consider when a developer comes back. If
Absolutely.
they've given that honest, good opinion, and so I would hope the developer would do everything they could to try to honor that.
Right.
Feel
The
in
developer
Lindon.
won't have any say. Once it's sold, he's gone.
Yeah, but like I said, then if the developer wanted to put something in the CCRs, he could. But that's his choice now. We can't require it, and that's something that
I think think it's a risk we, the planning commission, need to realize that it is a real risk, because projects along State Street that are buffer projects are the most likely to turn.
To deteriorate.
Change hands.
To change hands.
Well, what's interesting is on the other development that's being done, in the conditions with the zone change, we are requiring a certain percentage be owned.
Owner occupied.
Yeah, owner occupied. And
So is that something
that developer did not say, I can't do this because of the restrictions that the city's put on me. So, I don't know.
I get the argument about, concentrating a bunch of renters in one area, but there's nothing that says that your neighbor can't turn their home into a rental and you're living next to
Right.
rentals. And
Yeah, that's
And
true.
that happens all the time. Here in Lindon, I don't think it's as prevalent because property values are so expensive. So to the point earlier, now that these townhomes are nicer because of our requirements, I think they are less likely to become rentals and probably will be more owner-occupied properties. But who knows? But the HOA does provide another level of enforcement, though, for a landlord to, make sure they're putting in good people there, because as a investor myself and as a property manager, I get crossways with the HOAs all the time where they are enforcing the HOA rules because my tenant's not been following them. In other words, I get fined, I get notices, and it's just another level of policing that a single-family home next to you does not have. So there is some protection, I think, with the HOA in a situation or in a community like this that you don't have in our normal neighborhoods. But I think, anytime you concentrate, and I love renters. I mean, everybody's been renters before. More people are gonna be, I think our home ownership is going to drop as property values rise and as populations continue to increase. So there's nothing wrong with renters per se, but when you put a lot of them in one place, it does tend to degrade the entire community. And I think that is really more of a function of the HOA and the way it's being managed than what we can do as a city to tell a property owner or a developer what they can and cannot do in terms of rental criteria. It also affects financing and things like that much more in the past than it does now, the ratio of how many people are owner occupants and renter occupants. And that's something the HOA has to deal with, because if they can't get financing for those units, the value of those units goes down there, and then they're not selling them if they're not FHA approved, or, if conventional lenders won't take them because they're non-conforming. So, this is really something for the HOA to deal with more than anything, in my opinion. But sorry, I went on there for a little while there, but
I guess along that vein, these aren't designed in any way to have accessory dwellings, or they're too small, there's a lot of things prevent that. There's no okay, just wanna make, because that could open up another can of worms.
We only allow them for detached, single-family homes.
Okay, that's the answer, that's right, okay, I forgot that.
Okay. I don't have any other comments. Anyone else? Are we ready to make a motion? And we do need to add that one condition, that the Lindon Nursery subdivision be amended consistent with this development. So do I have someone that would like to make a motion? Jared, how about you?
I didn't write down the notes on those.
I can make the motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the applicant's request for a request to the city council for preliminary major subdivision approval for the property located at 531 North State with the following conditions. Those would be those conditions already mentioned, 1 through 6, plus the additional condition would be that the plat,
Lindon Nursery plat.
Lindon Nursery plat will be amended to jive with the subdivision plat, be cleaned up.
Consistent.
Yeah.
Consistent. I like the word jive, though.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Make sure that's in the minutes next time.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. And now I guess you go to city council and
Do we only go to city council
On this one issue, yes.
for the major subdivision.
Here at this level? Okay, so major subdivision. Will that be
Right.
on Monday?
Well, I don't, the staff reports were due today, so I was waiting to make sure everything passed, so.
Okay,
Sorry, when is the next one after that?
Be the third Monday in November.
because you've got oh, wait. No, they used to meet on election and not have meetings that night.
Well, that's because the meeting was on Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah.
Now
Now
it's
it's
on Monday.
Mondays.
Now it's on Monday.
Happy to go the Monday before the election.
I don't have time to do the staff report tonight,
Oh, come on.
so I'm sorry. And then I'm at a conference tomorrow, so.
So the third Monday in
Yes.
November. Okay, thank you for your.
Thank you for being here. We're looking forward to a nice development. Thank you for being here. Yeah. Okay, I think unless, there's things you want to discuss, I think we're down to the planning commissioner reports. Is there anything any of you have to bring up tonight? Or you'd like to discuss additionally?
I'd like to thank those who came to the house the other night. We had a
Oh.
great
Oh,
time.
dang it, I missed
Yeah,
that.
we need to,
That was
didn't you
really
go?
fun.
No, I missed it.
It was really
Yeah, that was
fun.
really, really
Just wanted
nice.
to go
It was
see it.
really fun. And the
So-
tri-tip was terrific.
So anyway, that was,
Yeah.
thanks for coming. We'll do it again in the spring maybe.
Oh, that'd be really fun. Yeah, thank you for having all of us. Appreciate it.
Just a question to our city attorney. Did we do anything wrong tonight?
No, you guys were perfect.
Okay.
No, I think we were very good. Technically, we didn't have to take any public comment, but we did, and I think that was great. And I think you did a great job.
I know we didn't need to take any public comment, but when they all show up and feel like they would like to be heard, it seems like we should.
I think that's a great policy to follow.
Yeah,
And it's specifically, sometimes you'll have applicants go, wait, I don't have to sit here and take this. This is not a public hearing, I don't have to do that.
yeah,
But in our code, it says specifically, at the discretion of the chairperson,
right,
public input may
Right.
be taken, and so I think that's a good use of discretion.
You know, we could have, maybe, the only thing we might have done different is acknowledge that we got all those written statements that we read
yeah, I
today. I'm
coulda,
sure most of us
yeah.
read them.
Yeah.
But,
At one point, I did say we have read.
yeah.
the,
Yeah, you did
Yeah,
say that.
no, you did,
And
but-
that covered probably most of the people that were sitting over there with
Yeah.
those that
That
probably
didn't
sent
end
them.
up, yeah, I think they were mostly employees that they came from.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen the end of this,
No.
though.
I
But-
think he's gonna
I guess the only thing there is there was one. Was there more than one that was more just the concept of density,
Density,
right?
there was one that was
And
just
so-
density
And
related.
so I just don't know if there's still any,
Density
Appetite
actually
to-
goes down now with that additional property.
right, well, if there's any appetite to
Oh, 'cause
look
you
at this
added it?
ordinance again. I mean, if you add that
Well,
to the property.
I think we ought to look at the ordinance with respect to this percentage that we talked about.
Yeah, see,
I'm
cause,
not sure you can do that, though.
Aren't you?
I don't think we can, but big question for Brian to look at hard.
Well,
Yeah. and
Ryan's
we are
gonna
looking
say,
into that.
Like,
Ryan's
to
gonna
have it
say
in
we
an
can't.
ordinance. or-
Ryan's gonna say the state legislature, but I think we can stand up to him a little bit more.
yeah, I mean, cause for me, it's like,
I was over
if
here
it's
making some comments about that, but-
70%, might as well be 100%.
I know.
I mean, the only way that 70% applies is if it's flopped. If it's only 70% cannot and 30% can, then it has an effect. But to
Yeah.
say 70% can, you
I
might as well say
figured
100%.
70% was put in because that's where they run into
I think that-
financing issues.
I think that was a dig.
I already addressed that with the financing, and they said it wasn't an issue, so.
Well, yeah, as long as they stay under
Understood.
percentage.
I thought it was 50% is
Oh,
what
maybe
I'd
it
always
is
been
50
told.
on
But they checked with their bank and.
They were okay,
They
huh?
were fine.
Traditionally, it's been 50, but I think FHA has gotten past some of those
Have they?
owner occupant ratio
Yeah, I had a
issues.
kid, one of my kids once that went to sell a townhome, and nobody could buy it because they couldn't get financing, because FHA wasn't lending in the project, because there were too many being rented.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that-
And just from what the developer told me, that applied more to condominiums, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I have a question for Brian. On this other project, the Norton property, where we put a condition, you know, as far as percentage that could be rented, can we do that? I mean,
Is it enforceable, or can they come back at us?
I think that in that circumstance where it was a discussion and they agreed to do that, we're okay.
that was more of the legislative.
Right.
Because it's
So-
part of the zone change, I think.
Yeah.
so if we had done that up front with Jeff, he would have had to have done that then.
I think there was an opportunity for us to do that, but again, that's, the state legislature is really coming down hard on some of
I
those
know they are.
issues, and that really is a moving target.
So I guess that was my question, you know, with what the legislature's saying, and I think Carolyn talked about it, or whatever. With this ordinance, do we want to go clean some things up and say if it's so deep, we want less density, or, I mean, there were some options, right? And I don't know when we
I think
start
the
that
council
discussion.
wants to look at it again.
Right.
And we'll probably target it to just these two properties, and if someone else wants to use it, they've got to add in the ordinance that property to it, and so we'll figure that out.
Okay.
And if you think that's heavy-handed by the state, if we don't get a good snow and wet year, watch what they do on landscaping requirements required by cities.
Well, so far, we're doing pretty good.
Let's hope it
I hope it
maintains.
continues, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I add
Yeah,
one
sure.
item? Just wondering, I sent the email out about training.
Right.
So just wanting to know the league reached out to me and asked if any of you guys have happened to watch the Duties and Powers video yet.
Not yet, but I'm going to.
They want some feedback on it.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's
I'll
one you
give you
all
some
have to
feedback.
watch.
That's a required
That
one.
that one's required. You've all been to at least 12 meetings, so that's another hour. So Sharon and Renee, because they went to the conference, they just need to do the powers and duties, but the rest of you will need to do the powers and duties
And another one.
and 2 more hours. So 3 hours total.
And we do that online, or?
Yes, I sent a link. I can resend those. I sent them right after our last meeting.
I'm used to training for years and years, and I sort of.
Yeah. So those need to be done by December 31st. And so I've got a spreadsheet. I'm keeping track of those. So,
I'll get that done and let you know.
okay. Next
Okay.
meeting will probably, sorry, it's been a long day. I can't remember the items that are on there, but we've got 3 or 4 items for the next meeting. They shouldn't, one of them will be the Lindon, next door to the Tag and Go car wash, the other properties.
Next business, huh?
Yeah, the other,
Those, the three drive-through businesses.
yeah,
No,
2
2
drive-throughs
drive-throughs and a
now and a
hair salon.
barber shop.
Yeah.
And we've got a road dedication we need to help Pleasant Grove with on 2000 West. We've got a couple other minor things, won't be too bad.
Okay.
Are we meeting the second? We're not meeting that 4th week in November, is that correct? Or are we?
Is that Thanksgiving weekend?
That's Thanksgiving week.
I think we currently have it on the calendar.
Oh.
It'll
Yeah.
depend on if we have a quorum or
Yeah,
not,
so
probably.
next meeting, let me know if we'll have a quorum.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Well, let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Deb is, okay, motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Well, thanks, thank you to both of you for being here tonight, and you've done a terrific job putting it together. And Brian, thank you so much for always being there to support us.